Okay, it's 6:30. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to District 6. Call this meeting to order. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes for tonight's meeting, April 14th, 2020?
So, go ahead.
I move we approve minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, would anyone like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes for February 10th?
I make a motion to approve the minutes for February 10 meeting.
For a second?
I have a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Let's move on. Oh, fire department. I didn't see you over there.
Just snuck in. Captain Casey Rothschild, Firehouse 3 at 32nd Broadway. Big thing we can discuss is the burn ban that's continuing for the county throughout the month of April. Our neighborhood up here in particular, we have a lot of folks that choose to burn during the burn ban, and we understand that. Most of these are mitigated in fire pits, so we'll come out, remind them of the burn restriction, put the fire out if they're unable to do so. There are requirements for open burning. You have to excuse me, I choked on water right before I came in, so. But there are obviously requirements and restrictions. And those can be found on the fire page, excuse me, at City of Wichita.gov. Where you call that, I don't think I can get through it. Also be mindful of the weather getting nicer, children moving around. We have had a few children that have been struck by vehicles, not necessarily within the district, but across the city. Pedestrians being struck as well. So be mindful of people out and about, being active, a lot of motorized vehicles out running around. So we're trying to educate people that be aware, especially in the dawn and dusk hours, traveling west, eastbound, those things happening. Our area up here on the north end's been fairly quiet fire duty wise. We're just trying to watch out for any open burning that's taking place. Especially when we have red flag days, you probably have heard that numerous times on the weather now, they're very good about covering that. That tells us that we have potential for grass fires that even in short grass could spread very fast due to the wind, low humidity, and the temperature. So if we do have open burning during those days, do call us, let us know, that way we can get over there and we can say, hey, we need to extinguish this fire before it gets out of hand. We don't want that to promulgate through the whole neighborhood. With that, I'll stand for any questions anybody might have.
I did see that, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, but there was a lot of, I mean, you guys were out there, but right by the zoo, they were burning all of. So why or?
Yeah, so the zoo is actually a special property in our city. It's county fire district because it is operated by the county. So they do what they call mitigation burns. We have areas like that throughout the county. It's a lot akin to what the farmers do, trying to cut down on various weed growths that'll come up and be sporadic. They'll burn that vegetation off. Excuse me, the Flint Hills is why we're in the burn ban itself. They're trying to promote better grass for the cattle out in that area. So necessarily not the problem with the zoo, right? But they want to make sure they don't have these invasive weed species spread throughout the zoo and they can burn those off and mitigate them and keep the grass down without doing a lot of extra mowing and overhead costs. Yes,
Is there an end date for the burn ban?
the end of the month, April
Okay.
30th.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
Hey, Wichita Police Department update.
So I'm Officer Cordnoy. I am the temporary community policing officer for beats 11 and 12 for the west side. So bear with me, this is my third week. So I'm gonna try to go over with you guys. I went ahead and printed some of the statistics. So for the last year, our rapes are down, our robberies are down, our burglaries are down for 11 beats. Let me preface with that. The only comparison with the last month, since we had a slight increase with our aggravated assaults, they went from 5 to 6. So only one difference there. For 12 feet, we are, for the last year to date, we're down on our robberies, aggravated assaults. And then for our month comparison, again, our aggravated assault is up 1, it went from 3 to 4. So again, only a 1 difference. And then for 14 beat, we had our burglaries are down and our larcenies are down and our auto thefts are also down. And then our aggravated assaults are down 40%. They went from, in the last 28 days, they went from 10 to 6. Things that are going on in the area, Riverside Hospital, the old Riverside Hospital. We had that boarded up in February. I did some research over the last 2 months. We've only had 2 reported burglaries, which is phenomenal compared to some of the issues we've been having. Also for the Delano area, we're currently doing our RTM, which is our risk terrain modeling. Essentially, a call goes into dispatch, 1 per bureau. It's a specialized for the officer to do, so either foot patrol, business contacts, citizen contacts, or even just an increased police presence in the area. We essentially with the RTM, each bureau picks a specific area they want to focus on, and we chose to focus on Delano. So when that call comes in, it'll give a area and it'll say, spend 15 minutes with your lights on, and we're trying to basically try to cut back on our gun violence. So that's an event we're doing in the Delano area, so you might see an increase in police cars out there with their lights on, just sitting there. You might see officers out walking around, trying to contact businesses. So that's something that we're working on. And then we got a gate up at Sims Park. So for after hours, when the park closes, the gate will be shut. And that way we can try to hopefully curb some of the people going into the park after hours and doing things that we don't want them to be doing. So that's essentially what I have as an update. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Could you repeat the RTM? What does that mean?
So it's risk terrain modeling. So essentially,
I'm saying just one word because I'm not hearing you right. That's
risk,
risk.
yes, risk terrain
Terrain.
modeling.
Okay,
yes.
okay.
And that's what that stands for. And like I said, each bureau picked a specific area where they wanted to try to target gun violence. We chose the Delano area. So again, it just increased police presence that helps us, show our presence and then hopefully dissuade some of that gun violence that that area is experiencing.
Okay, thank you. So I guess, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And how do you pick it? If a call comes in, how do you decide what areas you're gonna focus on?
So the call generates itself. So our crime analysts have it set up so that the call just automatically comes in. It's this automated call and it will pick a specific area within that set area.
Oh,
So it'll pick a random,
who's calling?
it's just an auto-generated call. So the system generates itself. There's not anyone calling in.
Basically, they just chosen locations right now, like a certain area. So it's not like a call is actually coming up, they chose a certain area that this is how we're gonna respond. To try and see if it changes the crime in that area, which it should.
Who's,
The system, the CAD, our call where we get our calls from, the CAD system, which is where our 911 calls get put into. The system is generating the area and then we'll put that call in. So no one's calling in, we're not putting it in, the system is picking that area and
There's
it
some
will
criteria.
randomly choose an area within this parameter that it's set up.
For example, if you've had like a certain crime that's been occurring in the same area, like a lot of times, basically it'll start saying that, hey, this is an issue at this time and this day. So it's gonna specifically bring people in the area to say that, hey, this is when this is happening.
so it's triggered by particular kinds of crimes and there's some kind of threshold.
For right now, yes, you can put all that stuff in there and then that's when it says, hey, we need to get somebody over here to do this.
There's some, how do we know what because it's like an algorithm that's picking it, right? That's what you're describing. Is there some kind of algorithm?
Yes, everything's an algorithm nowadays.
Sure, but that's what this is too. It's not randomly picking.
Predictive.
It's saying there's some kind of
Yeah, so if you have larcenies that are occurring every single time at 3 o'clock over at said store, then eventually, it's gonna say, hey, you need to send somebody over to this location over in this area, because this will deter the crime that could be happening.
So, right, so is there a way that we can see how what the evaluation process is on that? Like, what is the criteria they're picking? Because maybe they're not picking,
Right now, we're just in the testing phase, so.
yeah, they're picking like larceny at a gas station, but not wage theft. From, so there's crimes, there's a decision being made on like what types of crimes to focus on and pick an area. Right, so I just would be curious, like, what's the criteria? What are the types of crimes that are?
I don't know everything that it has all to go in there. I can find that out for you.
I'd love to know more about it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, just to see what all crimes are actually going in there, what we're trying to deter, whether it be part one or, part two, or if they're aggravated crimes, or if they are larcenies or abandoned vehicles that just get stuck in there.
yeah, and then are there areas that it won't?
Yeah, as of right now, it just has to be within that specific area of the Delano. That's where we have a kind of a box set up, and it has to be in that area as of right now.
It's kind of tough right now because we're still in testing, so.
Well, there's
They
so much area.
they picked a certain area for it.
Yeah, I'd just be curious, like, what's the criteria? What types of crimes are you looking at for that, of all the times, and how is it making that decision? And what threshold does it reach, but is needed to reach that point where it calls and then decides this is where you need to put more police. But, yeah, thank you.
So I'm gonna sound like a broken record every now and then. One of my biggest concerns for the community at large is the abuses that happen with the big ditch. As far as illegal vehicles, motorized vehicles in there, it's taking its toll and tearing up the terrain, and creating ruts. And it's no big deal right now, but one of these days, we're gonna get a toad stranger. And I'd sure hate to see those abuses end up with erosion and cause a breach.
Okay.
You're looking like you haven't heard that.
I had not heard that before, so.
Well, here you go.
It's
It's particularly predominant in our area, I know. If you look at Arkansas Avenue
Mhm.
on over to the river, you'll see it predominantly there on the top of the dam,
Mhm.
dike, and on the first step levee.
We've been hearing a lot about that over by the Moorings area kind of also.
I'll identify with the north side guys to let them know if they need to be checking that area over there, cause I know that a lot of the neighborhoods get upset whenever you find somebody like driving down the middle of the street anyways, or like you're sitting there you're having an event. We were having, one of the barbecues, over at, for National Night Out, and somebody was just riding their motorcycle up and down, and then finally it's like, we have to go and talk to them and say, hey, we can't do this. But yeah, it's happening in the neighborhoods right now, especially a lot because it's getting warmer.
Well, it's something really difficult, I know, for you guys to both monitor and enforce. So I understand completely.
Yeah, because when it happens really quick and then they're done. They go and park in the garage.
Yeah.
You said Arkansas to the river. I'll send an email to the North CP, see what they know about that, so.
Okay. I guess I'm glad it was a broken record again.
Any other questions?
Thank you, it's nice to meet you. We
Yes.
were wondering who was gonna be taking that.
It'll just be temporarily, but I will help with whatever I can, and if you have issues, let me know, and I'll do my best to either work through it or figure it out or ask for phone a friend, so.
I appreciate it, thank you, Rose. Any other questions?
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be quick. And I'm Officer Williams. I do 15 and 16 beats out west. Let's see, for the first thing that I have here is we want to make sure it's starting to get warm right now, so I just want to make sure that everybody remembers that. I know it's nice to raise our garages, but we got to remember to get those shut. Otherwise, it could either cause number one, a burglary, or an aggravated burglary if somebody comes in there. So we need to make sure that we're getting that shut. Our big case of the past week or so was the Cannon and Riverside getting stolen and vandalized. We did end up catching that individual. As far as confessions or anything else, I don't have any of that, but it was an unfortunate deal because, as Wichitans, we hate to see our statues and our art get destroyed. So fortunately, we caught the person who did it again. And then also, I know it doesn't address this side of town, but just remember that Kellogg is dangerous. I'm not sure how the individual is that got hit the other day on Kellogg, but it's one of those deals where we need to just make sure that we're thinking when we're driving, as well as not crossing it. Other than that, that's all I got. Does anybody have any questions?
What's, for a while, you guys were having extremely high incidences. One is too many. 80, 100-mile-an-hour traffic violations on Kellogg. Is that still going on?
You still have people who do it every once in a while, yeah.
Really?
I mean, they think that they're not gonna get caught. And then on the other hand, with our policies, we're not gonna put anybody else in harm's way. I mean, cause trust me, when you get up to a certain speed and you're barely touching the wheel and it's jumping all over the place, it lets you know that the car's in control. And then anything can happen.
There's minimal contact with the tire at that speed.
Yep.
They tell me.
Sure.
One more question?
How's any administrative warrants, are those, moving along?
They are moving along. We did have a problem house on Second Street that we were dealing with.
The same way?
Yeah, he has since moved out. We're still trying to get the house cleaned up.
Okay.
But he still has a car every once in a while on property, but we have written enough citations that stopped. We had some other houses that it was starting at, but we were able to talk to them about the other situations that are going on, and they eventually get the cars moved. So
Good.
it's been pretty good.
Thank you, I know that was really fun.
You don't realize how bad sometimes, like, we understand with the abandoned vehicles, people will park them, right behind your driveway and just leave them out there and not move the car for years.
Mhm.
Those are the ones that we're trying to get to. We may not see them all the time, but if you want to email the officers over in the CP office, we'll definitely get it taken care of.
Got a sergeant at West who will not ticket vehicles parked for 6 months on a street. He won't let the CPs do it.
As far as citing,
Butch,
I have not had that situation. Usually it's us that usually does everything on the vehicles. Every once in a while, I'll cite if I feel like something needs to be cited, like a car in need of repair on the street. We've written them for parking on the grass, flat tires, no tags. But ultimately, we just try to get them to the individual who owns the car to move it.
Any questions?
I do have a quick question. As you mentioned parking conditions. Is it legal to, I'm trying to word this carefully. I'm not doing it. Is it legal to park a semi-tractor in a residential area if it's off the street?
Like
Like a
like a
semi-trailer?
trailer or a
Just
tractor?
a tractor. Not the trailer, just the tractor.
I would have to go look at that one.
Would you?
don't have
I
that
could
information.
find it.
Yeah, that's-
I'd appreciate that. Then I
If
know.
it falls under anything, if it falls under a vehicle, it'll be, we like to put the 2-day sticker on there. But with the semis, it's actually 2 hours. So they have to be moved within 2 hours, but we usually give them 2 days.
Which
You
this
mean
is-
like, just like the semi cab?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, the tractor.
then you, okay.
and it's off the street?
Yep. Parking it,
And like a parking lot,
no, in their driveway in a residential area.
yeah, that deals with NABCD.
Thank you so much, Jean.
Okay,
But like they have different rules, like even if you park like an RV in your driveway, you have to have it a certain way, otherwise they can cite that also.
right. Okay, I'll send you a text.
Sure.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Good
Okay,
job.
Thank you, appreciate
you.
it. Good.
Hi, for those of you who haven't met me, my name's Sierra Kelly. I'm the branch manager here at Evergreen Library and also over at Angelo. We had an exciting an exciting day today at the Angelo branch. We got there super early. The branch, if any of you have driven by or seen on our website, we're closed right now because we are getting new shelving installed. So the Angelo branch reopened after being renovated in March. So did the Westlink branch. So the two branches opened up just within a week of each other. But the shelves weren't ready at Angelo, and so we had to put in temporary shelves. And then now we're closed so that we can get those permanent shelves installed. So we are hoping to do them tomorrow and reopen on Wednesday. Don't quote me on that, but based on everything we got done today, I think we'll be able to reopen on Wednesday. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the new Angelo branch and the Westlink branch, definitely you'll want to check those out. Westlink's been closed for quite a long time, and they had a huge renovation with a lot of additional space added and all new furniture. There's a lot of new rooms and technology. And Angelo, obviously a much smaller branch, but we also have some new addition, a new room, some new technology as well. Rockwell branch is closed for renovation right now, so they have been having their exterior renovated all year, so they're building a huge addition to the Rockwell branch. Their children's and teen areas are going to expand quite a bit, so they got the exterior of the addition all done, then they closed, and now they're working on the inside. Hopefully they'll be able to reopen in August. Until they reopen, Angelo, which is a small branch, normally only open 36 hours per week, is now open 60 hours per week. So it has the same hours as Rockwell did, as Evergreen does. So 10 to 8 Monday through Thursday, 10 to 6 Friday and Saturday, and 1 to 5 on Sunday. So since those branches serve kind of similar areas, we wanted to take some of the Rockwell staff, open up Angelo more so that we can serve some of that community that's not being able to go to Rockwell since Rockwell's closed. So those are the construction updates. I have some programming updates for the library as well. So we are nearing the end of our Big Read program. So we do that every year. There's one book that's chosen. There's a committee that chooses that book, so Wichita Public Library, but also representatives from Andover Public Library and Derby Public Library, so it's a big sort of, the libraries come together and they choose a book, and we do lots of events throughout March and April. So we've had book clubs, we had talk with the authors, we've had some documentaries and conversations, and that's been really great. We do still have 2 more events for the Big Read at the end of this month. So on Friday, April 18th, so that's this Friday, we're having Wichitalks 2025. So Wichitalks being like TED Talks. So folks from around the community are going to come in and do short presentations on the theme of breaking barriers. And so our adult literacies team and our NPR representatives have been working with the presenters to finalize their presentations. So that's going to be a really fun event that's happening this Friday. And then the other Big Read event that we still have, we have an event called Housing for All with the Wichita Journalism Collaborative, which is going to be a panel discussion all about accessible living spaces in Wichita. And that is going to be on Wednesday, April 23rd at 3:30. That's going to be, both of those events are going to be at the downtown library, the Advanced Urban Library. April is also Earth Month. So the library has been doing, well, April is when Earth Day is, and then it's also Earth Month. But we've got a lot of sustainability programs going on. So a couple of them here at Evergreen and at Angelo, and then also down at the Advanced Learning Library. So we had a water conservation workshop at Evergreen 2 weeks ago. We're going to be having that same water conservation workshop at the Atwater Neighborhood Resource Center. It was going to be at Angelo, but because of the whole shelving situation, it's going to be at Atwater instead. We had a composting program over at Atwater as well last week. That was really great. We're going to have a screening of a documentary with Public Works sustainability staff at the Advanced Learning Library this coming Saturday, April 19th. The documentary is called Hot Times in the Heartland, and it's about climate change in Kansas. So they'll show the documentary, and then there will be a Q&A. We have an air quality program here at the Evergreen branch, happening on Monday, April 21st at 1:30. It's gonna be all about how to stay up to date on air quality, how to reduce your exposure to poor air quality days, how to improve air quality in your home and in your community. And then, yeah, the second water conservation workshop, on April 28th. So if you're interested in learning about, sustainability topics, the city's Office of Sustainability are, working with the library to coordinate those events. And so they'll have staff there and, they can answer your questions on any of those topics. And then finally, we have a super exciting children's program that's coming up that I wanted to promote here at Evergreen. So the last day of April, April 30th, is El Dia del Niños, or El Dia de los Libros, which is an event that celebrates children. It celebrates reading. It's something that we've been doing programming every year at Evergreen for the last few years. We do it a little bit differently every year. And this year, we have an exciting lineup of activities celebrating local children's authors. So we're going to have a puppet show and fiesta. So we'll have a bilingual story time with a local author. And then we will also have a puppet show that our children's librarians have created based on a book by a local author. And so she'll be there as well. They'll have the puppet show. We'll have crafts, activities, some refreshments. It's gonna be super fun. Encourage you to come if you can, or if you know any families who would be interested. We do have flyers right on this table out here. It's gonna be Wednesday, April 30th at 3:30. So those are some exciting things that we have coming up at the library. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Any questions?
Just a comment.
Yeah.
Our neighborhood's been blessed to have the book bus
Oh, yeah.
show up several times now.
Mhm.
And participation level that is increasing,
Mhm.
and families that are using it really appreciate it.
Yeah, the book bus is fantastic. Book bus is in the shop at the moment, but hopefully will be out of the shop soon. It had an unexpected issue, but they're getting it fixed and she'll be back on the road soon. But yeah, our book bus, we just have one book bus at the moment and it goes all around the city. Every day, pretty much she has stops, and you can see where the book bus is gonna be a lot of times if you go to our events page. We do list the book bus stops there if you ever wanna see where it's gonna be or you wanna go experience it for yourself. Okay,
Thank you so
thank you.
much. Public Works.
I'm gonna try to go through this fairly fast. So if you have any questions, stop me. We can talk about any specific projects you want to talk about. So projects currently under construction, started out with Canine Rooster Dog Park. Opening week will be May 12th, 2025. The grass needs to get some growth on it before we start putting dogs and stuff out there. Portland Blues downtown, A-Price Order is wrapping up and construction is currently underway on Master Park. Estimated completion is end of May 2025.
Quick question?
Yeah.
There's been, I'm gonna call it some controversy over the cost of those projects. That's not my question. It concerns the, I guess I call it the life cycle cost. The city, how far out in the future does the city have budgeted for maintenance and I guess daily restyling of those things?
I don't know that. I would have to get back to you.
I can help answer that question. If you
All
don't
right.
mind.
I cannot believe how controversial these bathrooms have been. It is
We don't use that explicitly.
bananas to me.
So, sorry, Sean, good everybody, and we, Gary Jansen, Public Works. We have, cleaning budgeted within, our operations budget already. We've got our maintenance team has been involved with installation, so they understand how everything works on this. One of the reasons we chose this style of restroom is because they're very durable. They've been proven to last. They've got a lot of features that help them operate through multiple types of weather conditions that we think is gonna make them even more durable and more maintenance friendly. So, shooting towards opening both at the same time in May. And I'm excited to see how well they're gonna work, and we're ready to take them on. So we've got everything planned in perpetuity from an operations standpoint.
Can you talk about the maintenance, like basically they spray them down and they're being added to the daily routine?
So the way these are made, heavy gauge steel, makes them a lot more durable. In other communities, they've been proven to be mostly vandal proof, which is a big deal. Even if there's instances of graffiti, the type of material, the coating they have on them makes them easier to clean. From a overall maintenance and cleaning standpoint, as council members said, it can easily be cleaned, hosed down. What we've looked at already with our, we're gonna have our own staff cleaning these restrooms. So we have most of our restrooms in parks and otherwise are done by contract. We're gonna have our staff do this so that we can make sure we give them the attention they deserve. And we wanna make sure we understand how everything's gonna work. So we've got them on a daily cleaning schedule already. The day that they open, we'll be out there every day and make sure that that's the response that's needed. And by doing it ourselves, we can make sure that we can provide, everything that's needed to keep the, but we did a lot of research, as far as how these have worked in other communities. I mentioned the durability. There's a lot of, positive aspects that led us to recommending this facility, and I think they're gonna do well based on our research.
So do we have CTVs, not in them, but at those facilities so that if they are vandalized, we can at least capture what happened and who might have done it?
In the general vicinity, I don't know, I can tell you exactly where they're at, if they're right on these restrooms, but we should have enough in the area to know.
Okay.
Fortunately, we live in a free state, so there's plenty of surveillance.
They're really, I mean, I would say a bathroom is interesting, but the thought and detail that they have gone into these, they have like the blue lights where if someone tried to go in there to shoot up, it doesn't allow them to see their veins with the UV lighting that is used in there. They are very, feel like they checked a lot of the boxes, so.
Yeah, there's a lot of features that make it hopefully work the way that it should. There's no mirror in the bathroom, there's no things that the sink is outside. There's a lot of features that generally in the way this whole thing was designed, what they have found is people want to go in and get out and just be done, right? Because there's not a lot of privacy. There's enough to do what you need to do, but not enough to stay in. That was the whole premise of the design.
Thank you. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Moving on, pavement preservation, 2024 program for crack sealing is currently in progress, and that is Hoover from K96 to 53rd Street North. There are residential streets too. I'm not gonna go through those. You can look at the map if you wanna go on there and look at those to spread all out. There's also some localized repairs at 11th Street between Main and Market, and that's scheduled to start this month. 2025 program, asphalt overlay, Central and Veterans Parkway, and I believe that started today. As far as the pavement patching on that, and then there's also Arkansas from 45th to 53rd. Micro surfacing, again, you gotta look at the map because of the number of streets on that list. Preservation seal, includes downtown, Pekin and 40th Streets, Mosley from Murdoch to 13th, 21st, from Hamden or Kansas, 25th from I-235 to Hamden. 25th Street from Wellington to Parkways, Broadway from 37th to 235. Then there's residential streets, crack seal bids is proposed to bid in mid-April. That includes Ridge Road from 21st to 29th, Broadway from 25th to 29th, and residential streets throughout the 6 districts, and then concrete crack seal from on 25th from I-235 to Hamden. Brick rock walk repairs are scheduled for Murdoch and Market and Murdoch and Emporia. Concrete street repair for residential streets, again, you're gonna have to look at the map, because the number and location of those. And then some localized repairs at 3rd Street or at Washington between 3rd and Central. Arterial street projects that are currently under design. Douglas from Seneca to Meridian, We're in the process of starting that right-of-way acquisition process. That project has federal funding in it, so more or less when we take the driveway up, you gotta get temporary construction easement to rebuild the driveway. That's what the vast majority of the right-of-way associated with that project is. So if our contractor sets up on their private property, they are compensated for that, to set forms and things like that. We're working through the final design pieces of it, and there's some art elements that we're working to do on that piece of projects too. So, 29th Street from I-135 to Broadway. We are working with the railroad. Now, they've been the biggest hold up on this project. I think we finally got a path forward. We are in the process of doing some timing because of the signal we are installing at St. Francis, I believe is what the street is. Just to, tracks are just to the west of it, the spur track. But there has to be some signal timing coordination between their signal and our signal, so everything clears out, so you don't have vehicles stuck on track. So we're working through that. Once they get that approved, they'll start the design process. We'll get an agreement with them to go through the design process, construction piece of it. And we'll finalize our design with that. We are in the process of buying right away now with that project. That project has some corner clips or the major components of it to improve some of the radiuses of some major intersections through the truck traffic area. Hoover from 21st to 29th, just wrapping up right away and final plans for that project. Design more or less is done, clean some stuff up, but we have to also complete the right away. Most of that out there is unplatted, or a good chunk of it, especially the south portion of it. So they didn't dedicate right away as you would when you plat and come in and dedicate the standard right away that we'd be asking for. We need some right away on that. Typically it's a strip out front or corner clips or a strip along a side street to be able to make grades work. Construction is estimated to start late 2025 on both those projects for 29th and Hoover. 21st Street. I think we're getting close with railroad finally. We just need to finalize the agreement with them. Utilities are out there relocating now. This is the second phase. We built from the canal that runs through that area. So just to the east of Mosley, all the way to I-135. We built that phase, we bought right away that we needed. Utilities are relocating now. Evergy, Cox, AT&T, I think a little bit of Kansas Gas in the area too. So once that's done, once we get the stuff finalized with the railroad, we'll have a final agreement. We'll have the plans wrapped up and be ready to go. Again, construction is estimated to start in late 2025. 2nd Street, I'm not going to mention it because I'm going to talk about it later tonight. 29th and Broadway intersection, we're going to design concept. That with the consultant, I would anticipate that coming to the district advisory board, if not next month, the following month after that. We just have to get our design concept to where everybody's on board with it so we can make something work. It's gonna give us the best option with that project. Manissa Bridge, there's some artwork that needs to be refurbished on the bridge. There's some sand mitigation that needs to be addressed underneath the brick. You'll see some areas that the brick has either been removed and reset and or is settling. There's obviously concrete underneath, but there's a sand bedding between the concrete and brick. And some of that sand has been moving around and it's allowed that brick to settle down a little bit. Not an issue with you driving over it as far as any type of concern with that as far as the bridge or anything structurally, but it's something we need to get addressed. There's also some sidewalk issues on the periphery of the bridge that we need to get addressed.
Is there going to be a call for antique colored glass again?
We'll see. So part of what we're looking at doing now is having a conservator come up with a mock-up for more or less the different colors we need and the mix of concrete that needs to go into that, the mix design of it. So the contractor, that portion that's already done, they just go out and do what we need to do. So we'll see. There are, I believe, 6 to 10 boxes left over from last time. So it's gonna depend on how much we get into some of the different components of it. So that project's currently under design. Once we get the surveyor on board and get some plan details done for the physical elements we need to do with the bridge, we'll end up bidding a project. Ideally, it'd probably be done when school's not in session. Whether we can make that work or not, or how we work around that, we'll have to see. We've been in discussion with school, so it's not like they're not aware of it, but it'll be something we'll keep in discussion with them as we get closer to actually bidding the project. Dirt Street, 2025 program includes a bunch of projects in District 6. So First Street from Bear to Anna, First Street from Kessler to Joanne, First Street Court south of First Street, Clara north of First and Second to Third, Doris from First to Third, BB from Second to Third, Third Street from Doris to Bear, 26th Street, Edwards to Bullinger, skip over, Del Cieno is actually a 24 project. We did supplemental in the last month or so. We're concerned about some of the drainage. That program does not have money in there for significant drainage. So we're looking at options of what to do. There's more or less a hole in the middle of the project, and best we can tell, it just runs over somebody's property if it gets too full. The assumption is it's pretty sandy soil, so you probably get a lot of infiltration, so it's probably not a significant amount. But then if we put pavement over where that dirt road, sand road is now, you're probably gonna end up with a little more runoff. We have concerns about it, so we're looking to see what we can do there. There is no underground storm sewer, so even if we were doing something else, as far as curb and gutter or something like that, there is nowhere to take it. So we'll look at options of that. 8th Street, 3 8th Street projects, which includes Young to Bear, Bear to Anna, and Anna to BB is bidding in May, beginning of May. And those were 2024 projects. They were grouped with the Del Cieno one. We're investigating Del Cieno. We decided to move forward because we haven't got anywhere with Del Cieno yet. As far as what our final plan is gonna be, we're grouping it with another group of projects. We had to leave one of those behind because of some right-of-way issues. So we grouped the rest of the projects together, and we'll just include Del Cieno and the other project with some of the 2025 projects when they come up to try to get a better price, because everything's quantity wise, if we can get large quantities, typically get a better cost on it.
Is there a way we can skip over the 2023 ones and find a different project because the railroad doesn't want to do it?
And the bad thing is, when we went out and actually met with the railroad on site, it sounded like it wasn't that big a deal. Now, that guy's no longer there,
Sure.
and I don't know if he got let go, I don't know if he, we could consider that, I guess.
I mean, I don't want to, I'd love to, but it just, if they're gonna be, continue to be a pain, like, maybe we could just, I don't know how that really works, but.
I have a monthly meeting with the railroad because it's 29th, because it's 21st. Let me actually just bring that up at our next meeting and see where they're at as far as, part of the issue was they, based on the discussion we had, they had to actually have somebody sign something saying they were willing to give up their right to the railroad.
I think what we're talking about is, what is it, 14th and 15th?
Washington from 15th to 16th and 14th to
There's
16th.
like railroad ties or railroad.
Run down the middle of it,
Yeah,
more or less like the Meade corridor.
but if it's abandoned and, but we need their permission to remove it or.
Correct, and the weird thing is, when we talked to them, they actually were more or less, to be able to use it, you have to replace them anyway. Because they're in such bad condition that, so you're not really giving anything up, other than the fact that, I guess we don't mess with it.
You just never know when you might need it, though.
Councilmember, I might add a comment to that real quick, if you don't mind, Shella. So the decision that the city council made last year was to pave all the streets through 2026, the ones that are adjacent to schools, so really right now, our aren't going past that anyway, so that funding will just sit there. Even though it takes a while, there's nothing to jump forward to, if that makes sense. We'll still get to all of them that are on the list through 2026 regardless. At some point, I don't think we'll abandon it, it'll happen, it's just working with the railroad.
Yeah.
And I only mention that because I think it's best overall that we'll still be able to do that.
Super power your bike,
Huh?
super power your bike.
I'm sure.
That's the end of the levy, so unless anybody has any.
Two questions. Ridge Road, just north of 29th Street, the railroad crossing there is deteriorating. I don't know if you guys have been made aware of that. You have? No, I don't know, but we can look at it, especially right-hand lane. So that might be worth contacting the railroad and saying, hey, you got a problem here, but
Right hand lane northbound. or
northbound,
south?
yes, 3100 block, north of 29th Street. And then the second question I have, you're gonna love this one. What's the status on the, I guess I'd call it assessment / planning for the elevated portion of I-35?
So you're talking about KDOT project.
Yeah.
That they got a grant for.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we actually submitted it, it was $4,000 at the same time for Eisenhower Parkway and Kellogg to look at redoing something there. So they got a planning grant to look at what to do with that. And mainly because they're bridges, how are you gonna carry traffic? What do you do? Typically, you don't like to build bridges half at a time.
Yeah.
That component of it, they are in the process, but because it's federal funding, I don't know where they're gonna be at as far as.
Sorry, I don't mean to keep jumping in, I just happened to be on a meeting about that today.
I know we're gonna have to jump in.
No, so Don's right. Federal grant has been awarded to complete an environmental impact study for the canal route. Takes a while for that to happen. Our 21st Street project, the Reconnecting Communities grant for evaluating railroad crossing delays. It took us almost 12 months to actually get that federal funding awarded. So that's where that's at. But eventually, like Sean, it'll evaluate potential impact. KDOT's estimating 10 to 15 years left on the canal route. This is from Harry all the way up to just past 21st Street. At some point in time, the entire thing will have to be rebuilt. As you can imagine, that's a pretty major undertaking. So this is the first step to figure out what that looks like, how much that costs, how long it takes, impact the neighborhoods, start meeting with adjacent neighborhoods will be one of the big components of that. So it's kind of
The top people are working.
yeah, it's just a matter of kind of sitting and waiting. The first thing KDOT will do is hire a consultant to undertake that study.
Well, that kind of lifespan estimate, I personally won't have to worry about it, but I would like to make sure we're looking ahead.
But they are.
The ramp from northbound 135 to westbound 235, that thing's got construction on it, just open. What are we doing there? There's a bunch of cones out there.
Which ramp?
From northbound 135 to westbound 235.
At the flyover?
Uh-huh.
They had a couple of failures there, sorry. They had at each end of the bridge, they had some failures basically where the connections are made. Historically, we've seen that happen. Where the pavement comes into the bridge. I don't know much more than that. I just noticed it when I drove it. So they're making repairs to that now.
They just seem really, or they have construction back there.
Right, but they're fixing the defect basically.
Okay.
I do have two questions from someone who's on Zoom. One of them is, has anyone looked at the foundation movement that supports the bridge? She's referring to the Minnesota Bridge.
Based upon our bridge inspections, we haven't noticed anything that is alarming to us based upon that.
And her second question is, at 11 and Market Street repair, will the brick roadbed be maintained?
With the road bed or the brick road?
Be maintained?
That I will have to get back to you on.
Okay. I'll let her know.
Public Works Utility Drought Update. Oh, yay.
Yay. You don't sound too excited, council member.
We're not getting
Quick
anywhere.
side note before I start, Bill, I was involved with the last restoration of Vanessa Bridge in 2008. Sounds like that was one of the coolest things I've seen when we asked for colored glass. We got more involvement and engagement. We were out there on one Saturday and it felt like hundreds of people showed up to bring what they hoped was kind of some of the antique glass. We still have some. It was really cool. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to be here. This is the last of 6 stabs that we are providing an update on where we're at with the drought and what we're doing for long-term water resiliency planning. So I've got quite a bit to go through. I'll try to get through this quick. You'll run PowerPoint?
Oh.
There you go. So we are still in stage 2 of drought restrictions. Things haven't changed much. So I'll talk to you about where we're at, where we've been, and where we're going. Just kind of as a reminder to everybody, we have 2 primary water sources, including Cheney Reservoir, which is the root of our problem, which is our surface water supply. Lack of precipitation in that watershed is putting in the city's drought restrictions. Our other source of water supply is groundwater from the Equispeds Aquifer, northwest of Wichita. That Equispeds provides water to the city of Wichita, city of Hutch, Newton. Most of the use, 50% of the use is for agricultural producers and others in the region, but we have some native water rights there. We've done a lot. I'll talk about soon about to help keep the Equispeds healthy, which is providing a real big benefit to this very extended drought. WWW is Wichita Water Works, our new water treatment plant, which is we're about to take possession of soon. I'm going to talk about that too. So generally, our surface water is 55 to 60% of our blend, with the balance being groundwater. That will change with our new groundwater. I mentioned El Dorado on this slide because as we've gone through time since last fall, when we went into restrictions last summer, get a lot of questions about why don't you do different things. One of them is why don't you get water from El Dorado? We've done multiple studies over the years. There's the state of Kansas, not unlike many places in the country, basically works to allocate water rights. So not anybody can just go take water wherever they want. Most of the water in El Dorado Reservoir is spoken for. There is some that is available, but when we get into regional drought, at the point in time we need water from El Dorado, it's not available. What would be there, we would drain the reservoir in a matter of days, and it wouldn't be worth the cost to provide conveyance from the reservoir. So we've looked at that, we've studied it, we've looked at it again. It is not a viable source. It's a great question. A lot of people ask that, but it's just not a viable source. Next slide. So what we currently do with water treatment, the top picture is our current water treatment plant built in 1939. Served a great life for us. We made a decision about 8 years ago that it was time to move forward and build our new plant. The city council recently made a decision that once that plant is offline, we're going to convert it to emergency use. So even though our new plant has a lot of built-in redundancy, it's going to serve us for a long time. You never know what might happen with any type of catastrophic situation. That doesn't even mean a weather event. It could be something that happens on site. Our city manager, when he was in Iowa, the city he was in, the water treatment plant flooded. Their community was without potable water for almost a month. You can only imagine what that would do. So we don't want to give up on the opportunity to have a backup, which is what we're going to do. We provide water to over 500,000 people, with 17% of all Kansans get water from the city of Wichita. That includes 8 neighboring cities, 3 rural water districts, a total of 11 wholesale customers. I always like to mention McConnell Air Force Base too. They use about 100 million gallons a year, which is very important to our community. One of the reasons I highlighted Derby and Valley Center for 2 reasons, because it's going to help provide a future water source for us. Derby has considerable water rights that are untapped at this point. They're going to build a water treatment plant here in the next several years that will help them provide water during high demand months. They won't be able to come off of Wichita water supply, but they can help meet the demand during the hotter months, higher demand months, which is really where we need the most help. So that's a really good thing. Valley Center is in the middle of design of a new water treatment plant that will come online in the next year or two, and they will come mostly off of Wichita water. So between those two, we get basically some of our water supply back, which will be a big help because they're going to be using water sources that they have, groundwater rights that they already have. Our new water treatment plant, I'll talk about soon. We're in the late stages of performance testing, and we hope to take ownership soon.
So neither Derby nor Valley Center will be tapping the Eccles beds?
Well, Valley Center won't because they've got their own groundwater supply and they won't need much water from us. Derby is still gonna need water from Wichita, and our water will come from Eccles beds and Cheney.
But their Derby's treatment plant won't.
Derby's treatment plant is gonna utilize their own water source at Derby. It won't come from the Eccles.
Okay, thank you.
They don't have water rights there. Cheney Reservoir is the source of our problem. So there's a 600,000 acre watershed that feeds North Fork of the Nenasko River that feeds into Cheney Reservoir. Since 2022, we're more than 2 feet below average precipitation, which is causing our problem. Water level now is actually just below 8 feet. I looked this morning. So I'll talk to you about our drought response plan and what triggers this, but we had whenever the last rains was, it rained so infrequently anymore. A week or two ago, we had a couple of rains, it brought the reservoir up 3 to 4 tenths of a foot. Doesn't seem like much, but we'll take anything. Within 1 week, we had lost all that to evaporation. So this Thursday is supposed to be 95 degrees. You can imagine when it gets that hot, that evaporation starts cranking up. A combination of no inflow, high evaporation, we will start to see this drop again. This is the lowest Cheney Reservoir has ever been since it was constructed in the early 1960s. So something we got to keep a really close eye on, and this is really the source of why we are in this stage 2 water restrictions, and we will continue to do so. Next slide. One other thing that we get questions about is the capacity of Cheney Reservoir, and I get asked a lot, why don't you dredge Cheney, make a bigger hole, provide more capacity for when it rains again. We have had watershed protection measures in place for many, many years. Upstream of the reservoir, we've worked with McPherson County, with Cheney watershed groups and others to limit the sediment into the reservoir. The last study that was done by the Kansas Water Office showed that it was less than 10% sedimentation. They actually just reached out to me today. It was good timing that they're ready to take on another study and see where we're at. But I'm confident in what we've done to protect that. So dredging is a lose-lose situation every single time. It's expensive, ridiculously expensive, and you gain very little. We looked at an estimate of cost, and we got to $100 million pretty quick on dredging, and it only gained us a month and a half of additional water supply. Generally not a good return on investment, really not a good place to go. So it's not something that we'll be looking at, but it's a good question. The only silver lining in this drought is that we're out making repairs to the dam right now. We've got an almost 2 mile long soil cement dam that was built when the reservoir was constructed. We have done some maintenance over the years, but it's been a while. You get a lot of erosion from wind and water waves against it. We had plans in place. The permit was in place from the Corps of Engineers. We had funding in place. Not wanting to lower the reservoir, it finally got to a point where it's below where we could start. So we were able to pull the trigger. I was out there just the other day making good progress. They're starting from the bottom and working up in case it starts to rain. We do have a separation clause in the contract. In case it rains and starts to bring that reservoir up, we are not going to lower it back down. We'll come back sometime later and finish the project. So that's been really good. It'll provide long-term value for the reservoir itself. Next slide. We have worked closely with the Kansas Water Office. The governor's drought declaration is important. So there's a lot of misinformation on it's a unique situation that we're in. So probably a lot of you have heard about what's going on in western Kansas for years with the depletion of the Ogallala Aquifer. That's because of over-appropriation, overuse, weather impacts, and everything else. We're in a unique situation for multiple reasons. Cheney Reservoir is out of sight, out of mind. It's 20 miles west of here. A lot of people in our community have probably never even been to Cheney Reservoir. Last year, as we were heading towards drought restrictions, we would get some rains periodically. And the local meteorologist would go on TV and say, it's raining, we're good with the drought, no problems. And they could not have been more wrong. And so that was leading to a real misunderstanding and misinformation in the community. We actually had staff sit down with all the local meteorologists. To their credit, they jumped on board. They started going out there and broadcasting from there. They started talking about Cheney, the impacts of Cheney. This is where our problem is. I think it helped a lot for people to understand that just because it was raining here, it doesn't mean we're even close to being out of a drought. If you look at the National Drought Monitor, you wouldn't even see a blip on there that it recognizes any issues here. So the importance of this at the state level through the governor's office to show those three counties, Reno, Harvey, and Sedgwick could be an emergency situation, is to kind of keep that out there. Not that everybody sees this. We also, at some point in time, could be a challenging situation with lost revenue from water sales. We have a large system. We have a lot of fixed costs based on being able to sell a certain amount of water. It's just the reality of it. There's going to be cost impacts eventually potentially to everyone. And we hope that maybe there could be funding available at some level for response to the drought. That's why this is important too. So next slide. Our drought response plan was put in place in 2013, coming off the heels of the last major drought we had. Lasted for about 2 years. That drought was wiped out by 2 big rain events over the course of 10 days, which we wish we could get again. It wasn't as bad as it is now. Cheney was not that far down, but we decided at that time it was important to do something moving forward. The city council at the time made this ordinance, codified our drought response plan. A lot of people ask, what are you doing? Do you have a plan? We do, and this is working. This plan, as desperate as this sounds, I guess is the word I'll use, is designed to last over 8 years of a drought and over 4 stages. And let's hope we never get to that point, but we'll respond to a Dust Bowl type drought. The goal is to extend our water supply as long as we can. It won't necessarily stabilize Cheney Reservoir, but it will allow us to use our water resources as long as we can. The further we get into it, the more we start impacting businesses in particular. The drought response plan, first and foremost, is focused on outdoor watering. As much as 20% of our annual water consumption in the community is outdoor irrigation. That's discretionary use. A lot of people like to have a green yard. I like it myself, but it's the easiest, I shouldn't say easiest, it's the first place we need to go to as far as discretionary water use, so we don't impact businesses until we have to. So that's why, and our goal was to save within stage 2, 50% of outdoor water use during that period of time, which we think we did during the first few months. Stage 1 is voluntary conservation. It was enacted in early 2023. One of the important parts of stage 1 is it requires the city of Wichita to implement an internal conservation plan. That information is available on our website. I'll show you in just a minute. We've done numerous things across the organizations. We've got a lot of facilities. We've got 3,000 employees. We've got 500 buildings. We've got a lot of fire stations. They don't wash the trucks near as much as they used to. Golf courses have taken a different approach to cleaning golf carts. Now that may sound like much, but it really starts to add up. We changed our landscaping practices to go to more drought tolerant landscaping. All of our facilities only started watering once a week. We heard from the community that they said, we'll conserve once you do it first. So we wanted to lead the way and show them that we could. And I think we've done a really good job of that. Stage 2, which limits watering to 1 day a week, was activated on August 5th of last year. These stages are triggered by the 12-month average conservation pool at Cheney. Again, this was designed to extend over an 8-year period. So stage 2, again, restricts watering to 1 day a week. No watering between 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. And I'll show you what that watering map looks like in a minute. It does come with penalties and fines. The first violation is a written warning. Second is $50 on your water bill. Third and subsequent is $100. we set out for this to be educational, we set out for this to be collaborative, not to be punitive, not to be, I don't have the resources to go after people. The community can provide, they can submit online. If they see somebody watering outside the time that they're supposed to, and people have done that. We have our construction inspectors or housing inspectors, if they're out in an area, they know which quadrant's supposed to be watered, and still the watch for it too. I think last year, by the end of the year, we ended up issuing maybe 30 penalties. There were quite a few warnings, but only if you get to the second time do you get a penalty. So we're still gonna do that. We've issued some notices of violation already this year. I've heard from a lot of people that for whatever reason, they thought through the winter that this all just went away. So that's fine. That's why we're out here. That's why we're talking to people and letting them know we're still there. Our goal right now is to stay away from stage 3. If we get to stage 3, which we're not projecting yet this year, but we still have to get some normal precipitation, or it could show up yet this year, stage 3 eliminates all outdoor water. At that point in time, and this is easy for me to say, I think the least of our concerns is a dead yard. We're going to start putting people out of business at that point. Nurseries, landscape companies, people that mow grass. We want to avoid that at all costs. Is our goal to stay away from stage 3, and I continue to tell people that. I get a lot of calls about concerns about how someone's yard look, and I remind them we got to do everything we can to stay out of stage 3, or you won't even have any yard left to worry about. We do have amenities for businesses. And the one thing I wanted to mention too, that vegetable gardens are exempt. So you can hand water a vegetable garden. We get that question a lot. Prefer that you don't turn on your irrigation system, but hand watering is good. Stage 4, we get in the far out years of the drought. Hopefully that is getting to a point that we're in a really bad place. I'm going to talk soon about some of our long-term plans, and hopefully keep us out of stage 3 and stage 4. Next. So you may have seen this. This is our watering map in quadrants. 4 days a week, starting northwest, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. No watering on the weekends. Andover are direct customers of ours, so they follow Tuesdays and Thursdays as far as north and south of Central. Again, the once weekly watering restrictions were implemented on August 5th of this year. This is still in place now. This information is available on our website. Quick side note, we had to kind of make some adjustments to this. Northeast Wichita has got a lot of irrigation systems. And so day 2 of our watering restrictions on Tuesday, so many people cranked up their irrigation systems. We had some pressure problems that we were not expecting. We had to adjust some things within that zone. Not a big deal. We were able to make it work. We understand now, but people were taking advantage of making sure that they could use it on their day. So I think it's people got on board. We weren't sure what was going to happen because we'd never done this before. We had gone through July, very high water use, right? Super hot month. All we were hoping to do was reverse course. And we thought if we could maybe save 10% would be nice. The very first week was 35% savings in water consumption from the week before. So people are getting on board. They're doing a great job. Some people have told us they're not going to participate, and that's fine. So I made sure I get their addresses and deal with that. So next slide. Resources, SaveWichitaWater.com. They've got everything you want to know about this drought. And I mentioned again, education has been very important. We have a dashboard on here for Cheney to show what the level looks like. Again, it's kind of a keep that out front there that this is where our issues come from. We've got irrigation education. We've worked close with K-State and Sedgwick County Extension. There's all kinds of information on there about proper watering of your yard, which does not need to be 7 days a week. I'll talk more about soon. It's not good for even to make a healthy yard. How you can save water. I mentioned our internal conservation plan. There's some really cool stuff on there. We have an internal conservation team. There's departments of every department. We meet monthly to talk about ways to save water. Councilmember Tuttle and Councilmember Ballard serve on that to help provide guidance for us, which has been great. I mentioned lawn care, how we manage our supply. Our water conservation rebate program is in effect again. It provides rebates for efficient devices in the house, irrigation system devices outside of the house, rain barrels. I know if you had a rain barrel right now, it probably don't have anything in it, but we still provide rebates on rain barrels because we will get rain at some point in time. Great information here. You can get a well sign. Our restrictions do not apply to those who have a well. But we ask everybody who does have a well to put up a well sign. It helps us when it comes to somebody reporting water use. It's quick and easy. We know if you're on a well. It saves us some time. So you can actually go on here and print off a well sign. A lot of great information, savewichitawater.com. We send people there all the time. Anything you want to know about the drought, please go there. Next slide. So what are we doing for the future? Because we are looking, nobody expected this to last as long as it did. We cannot go back to where we came from. I would bet you in 2013, when Cheney Reservoir filled up, within 2 weeks, the community mostly forgot that we were ever in a drought. We want to make sure that doesn't happen again. So I talked about our Equus beds and what we've done we've been really successful with a lot of innovation and strategic planning over the years to keep the Equus beds really healthy. The Equus beds is almost 92% full right now. A lot of that can be attributed to our Aquifer Storage and Recovery Project. Won't spend a lot of time boring you on this. Left picture where it says river intake structure, that is the Little Ark River north of Wichita. Anytime the Little Ark River is high enough, we take water off of the river, we run it through this process, we treat it, and we inject it into the aquifer. That is what's helping keep that aquifer as full as anything. And we are also building up credits for the future. We have a certain amount of water that we are allotted each year through the state of Kansas within that area. Again, there's a lot of users. At some point in time late in the drought, we can actually go above and beyond our appropriation or allocation by cashing in those credits. So we're doing two things to keep the aquifer healthy, to keep it up for everybody who's using it, and we're also building up additional water rights for the future, which is a great thing. This is really innovative. There's other people in the state that have seen what we've done and are starting to do some of the same. This is probably going to help us through the drought as much as anything. Next slide. New water treatment plant, $600 million project, largest project in our city's history. I always say thank you again to the city council for making this work and allowing us to find the funding to be able to make it happen. It's been a very complex project that we're coming down to the finish line. So performance and acceptance testing is going on right now. We expect to take possession of the plant in the next 30 days. We're going to need to get our staff operating the plant. We're trying to staff up to run 2 plants at the same time for a while, which has been a challenge. I hope in the next 90 to 120 days that this plant is putting water into the system is our goal. And then hopefully by the end of the year, our old plant will be shut down. We'll be operating totally off of this. This plant, theoretically, so right now our current water treatment plant can only treat 40 to 50% groundwater because of old technology and certain process improvements that are not improvements, but the way the process is done within the plant. This plant, theoretically, if Cheney is out of water, we could treat 100% groundwater from the Equus beds. I don't think Cheney's ever going to be out of water, but if it's not available, that provides tremendous flexibility that we did not have before, so we can balance the use of our water sources. Excited to bring this online. If you've been up Northwest, ever go by the zoo, you've seen over the last 4 years, this has really taken shape. Next slide. This is a lot of information on here, but here's the next place that we're going that I'm the most excited about that can really change the future of our water supply for truly generations to come. All of the green are wastewater treatment facilities around the community. Blue is the Wichita Water Works, our new water treatment plant, obviously. Down here at the bottom, from plant 2, that 26 million gallons a day, we treat wastewater that comes in that facility. We treat that to drinking water standards, and it goes into the Ark River, and it goes downstream, and others pick that up and use it. We have the rights to keep that water. So what we do as part of it right now, we have an agreement with Spirit for some years now, and we pump part of that treated water to them, almost 1 million gallons a day. It's been great for their industrial reuse, for their cooling processes. It has saved on using potable water for Spirit. It has helped with our conservation efforts. Where we're going next with this, but I'll talk about more in just a minute, because there's not currently even state regulations that allow this, but different parts of the country, a lot of communities and states are looking at recycling that water. I hear the term reuse used quite a bit. But taking that water, running it back through an advanced treatment system and putting it back into the system. We have almost 30 million gallons a day of treated water that could become a new water supply source from all of these areas. And keep in mind that water center right in the middle there, I'll talk about that in just a minute too, if you go to the next slide. That water center at Herman Hill Park, if you've ever been down there, it's kind of a cool facility. If you've ever had a chance to take a tour of it, there's a lot of educational components. City. Might have heard about the Gilbert and Mosley areas, the North Industrial Corridor. From industrial contamination over the years, we have been treating that groundwater for many, many years. We had an agreement with EPA to do that in lieu of them declaring it a Superfund site, which has allowed development to move forward. We have almost 1 million gallons a day of that treated water that goes into the river. Upper left, that's the water center you see back in the background. That hydrant right there is going to provide a water source to contractors now, starting April 1st. Just a few weeks ago, we were allowing contractors to utilize this water at no cost. And we've had a few landscape contractors take advantage of that already. So those that have water trucks, tanks on them, they've been filling up and using this. It's going to help people keep moving forward with business because they're not able to use potable water. We have worked through the Wichita Area Builders Association to make sure they understand that. I've heard from multiple builders since last fall saying that they can't get houses sold because they can't get lawns in. And I understand that. I get calls from property owners too saying, I was planning to put a yard in, now all I've got is dirt. We're not going to allow exemptions, but now we have a water source that I think multiple landscape contractors and others are going to take advantage of. So it's 1 million gallons a day, it's a lot of water. I think it's going to be great. We're advertising this everywhere that we can, getting the word out there. It's free of charge. They have to report their monthly use. They can literally pull up there and get that water and they can use it for landscaping purposes. So again, no cost. I think it's really innovative way to help keep people moving forward and provide an additional water source. What's in the middle is our pump station for the water that goes to Spirit that I just talked about. What's to the right is the biggest part of this that we're going to move forward with is what I talked about. That's just over 25 million gallons a day that comes from treated water from our wastewater treatment plant 2, south end of town, going into the Ark River. Our goal is to find a way to capture that, which we will. We can do that. We'll run it through advanced treatment and go to the system. If you go to the next slide then, what this looks like is upper left, treated wastewater is captured when we talk about this recycling process. It goes through a multi-barrier treatment process into the distribution system. If you look at, over the course of any 1 year, we average treating and distributing 50 million gallons of water a day. This proposed plan, we could provide to ourselves half of that amount of water every single day. We could create a new water supply and be able to provide 25 million gallons a day to ourselves. If we could do that, we will provide enough water for generations to come. It's likely that we'd never even be talking about drought scenario again by utilizing this water that is already, we have the right to, it's going into streams and the rivers now. There currently are no state regulations for this. It's relatively new across the country of looking at this as a water supply. Several locations in Texas that have this going now. We have hired a consultant that's got national experience in this. We're going to hit the ground running soon with public engagement, with working with the state of Kansas on regulation, with looking at funding sources for this. It's going to take some time to get to this. We have to get to a demonstration pilot project in the next 12 to 18 months, hopefully, but really excited about this. It's something I think is a perfect timing and opportunity to do this. Be a lot more to come on this. Next slide.
What's your guesstimate? Just ballpark. The recorder's off. Well, I guess it's not. on what the cost of that additional filtration system and piping would be?
Well, it's really gonna depend on where we have to go to do that. And that's why it's gonna be hard to guess. If we could take all of that water from our south treatment plant up to our new water treatment plant would be good, but that's 15 miles. One of the potential values of our current water treatment plant, the one we're gonna keep for emergency use, it could be that we could take some of that recycled water there, treat it and still send it to the system. If you go down to our, what I call our plant two, our main wastewater treatment plant, it's a big property, there's a lot of space. We're gonna look at what it might happen if you put a treatment process on that site and get into the water distribution system there. It'll be hard for us to serve every area, but we could partially do that. So over the next 12 months, our goal is gonna be look at every single option that we've got. It's gonna be expensive, but one of the things we're really looking at is potential for federal funding. There are some programs for the Bureau of Reclamation that are focused just on this. Because it is proving to be such a valuable potential for future water supply. There are programs dedicated just to this for funding. Over the next 12 months, we'll know better. But it's hard to even guess what the cost would be right now.
Is it single or double billion?
And it's still a big number. One of the Texas communities that was doing this was maybe $200 to $300 million. It's still a big number.
Why have we done that?
I don't dismiss that at all. I don't dismiss that at all. But, so I don't think we're gonna get to that point, or we probably wouldn't even look at it. So here's a couple of things we're doing. I promise you I'm about to wrap this up. Thank you for bearing with me. We're gonna look at landscaping standards. We're working with Builders Association, gonna be spending more time with them. Not like a lot of communities, all our new developments are all fescue sod, right? Everybody likes nice green grass, everybody likes fescue. City has never gotten to a point of saying you have to use or can't use a certain type of grass, and I'm not sure that we ever would. But we're trying to talk to developers about considering building more drought tolerant developments, right? HOAs, real quick, just when we ventured into this drought restrictions being in place, we heard from folks who live in HOAs with covenants saying that you can't do anything about us. HOA covenants do not take precedent over local law. And so we made sure everybody was clear with that. We went out and spent a lot of time with the HOAs, with HOA management, to make sure they understood that. And to their credit, most HOAs have responded and said, we want to figure out a way to make this work, right? I still hear from those who don't. But I think they realize as long as this is going over time, we got to find a way to make this work. In a perfect world, we would get a lot more HOAs that would say, hey, if you want to convert your yard to something other than fescue, you can do that. I don't know if we're going to get there, but we're going to try. The information we have on SaveWichitaWater.com talks about how to convert to more drought tolerant materials. And we're going to look at potential for asking developers to look at what it's like for reuse within developments. Most new developments have got water, right, built into them. A lot of that's for some of our permit requirements for the Clean Water Act, which is good. My brother lives in a big development in Jacksonville, Florida. And by law down there, they're required that all irrigation systems come from water within the development. They got purple pipe everywhere and valve boxes, and it's all reuse. I think it works really well. So I think there's a hope for the future and trying to keep the developers and the builders going. These are doing, no two droughts are the same because of water supplies, water issues, timing, all these things. Oklahoma City for many years now, as a result of drought and water distribution system issues, they've been on alternate day watering. Even side of the street is even days, odd side is odd days. They've stayed that course on that. I believe this is what we need to do going forward. At some point in time, gonna spend some more time talking to the city council about most likely revising our ordinance so that even when we come out of this drought, we won't allow watering 7 days a week. I think we can do better than that. I think it makes sense. And again, so if you look at any of I've seen it for years. I've seen people do it. When the media went out to Cheney Reservoir and they interviewed the lady afterwards, she said, well, now that I know what the problem is, I'll stop watering twice a day. And there are people doing that. So it takes education, right? But what folks don't understand, I'm not here to give you a horticulture lesson, but if you water your yard every single day, it's got no root system because it doesn't have to go find water. It's weak yard. And what happens then, if you go into restrictions and you were watering 7 days a week and you go to 1 day a week, your yard's gonna die. It's not gonna go dormant, your yard's gonna die from shock because it's got no water anymore. 3 or 4 days of water a week, your yard will still be green as it's always been. It's gonna take some people, I think it'll be tough for them to believe that, but I think we're gonna go that direction. So look at long-term conservation. It's one pretty low hanging fruit. I think it's an easy thing to do. Next slide. So to wrap all of that up, path forward, we talk a lot about changing our culture. We can't go back to where we were. We've got to keep this to the front of everybody's mind and know that this could happen more often. We don't even know when this one's going to end. Stage 2 watering restrictions stay in place. We're working on additional improvements in our Equispeds well field with ASR to do some things to even enhance what we're doing for recharge. We'll have our new water treatment plant operational soon. I talked about the water recycling initial report and recommendations. That's the most exciting part about this. We're really ready to get that moving forward. Continuing discussions with WABA and developing revised conservation recommendations going forward. So that was a lot of information. Thank you for bearing with me. Happy to answer any questions.
Got 4 of them. And I know this may be a little touchy, the testing for this new facility has dumped reasonable amount of water into the ditch. Is there no way to recycle that, at least for testing?
So I meant to talk about that. I'm glad you asked. There hasn't been so far. We've looked at multiple options and it's just became more of a challenge than folks quite often. And I understand that, especially it's not ideal. We have probably the worst timing you could ever have to need to be able to test any water treatment plant in the middle of the drought. For what it's worth, some of that water as it heads down the big ditch, it is helping to recharge the local aquifer in Northwest Wichita. And the rest of it heads down and ends up in the York River. That doesn't necessarily help us, but at least it's helping somebody. Soon, as we finish conversion of the 64-inch pipeline that'll send finished water from the new treatment plant to Hess Pump Station, which is near our current water treatment plant. We'll start sending that test water to that pipe. We are creating a fill station near the current water treatment plant. We have worked a deal out that Botanica is going to use quite a bit of that water through the summer months. And we also are going to create another situation like I showed you at Herman Hill Park, where contractors can use that water. And our hope is, because the permitting is a little bit different, that on some Saturdays, we may have staff and others out there for the public to utilize that water too. There's some challenges with operating the system and some safety issues, but if folks have a rain barrel, they can figure out a way to lift it, carry it, whatever. They could bring that up, fill it up, whatever they might happen to have, any type of tank. So we're going to start utilizing that, recycling that test water soon.
The summer conservation program, what impact will it have on pools?
We have not put any restrictions on pools. I get that question a lot. I'd say what our hope is more than anything, that people have fixed all the leaks in their pools. So you can generally fill them up one time and then you see a little bit of water here and there from evaporation, but we have not, our drought response plan does not respond to pools, even private pools. So.
You've adjusted the hours on some of the pools, but nothing water related, right?
Correct.
You've already touched on my third question. I'm glad you did that advance. And that's pushing toward more warm season or zero-scape landscaping. I'm glad you guys are talking with WABA and others.
Yeah.
My last one, I'm a little bit concerned. I was pleased that you didn't emphasize it in this presentation, but I'm a little bit concerned about promotions for avoiding, for lack of a better term, restrictions imposed by using the treated water and well water usage. You know, I just can't help but think that as more wells are drilled and more people are utilizing that, it could have an impact on our water table.
So, a quick discussion on groundwater.
Okay.
And because people ask that a lot. So we generally encourage even those on wells to practice this thing, but the reality is it has almost no impact. And in fact, during normal seasons, we would be better off with more wells and take some of the stress off of Cheney. So the local aquifer, the water below where we're at, it is hydraulically connected to the aquaspats, right? It's all water. However, it recharges naturally from the Big Arc River, and testing over time has shown that. Now, we'll tell you, because of this long-term drought, there are people in West Wichita that have seen their wells dry up. But for the most part, people are still able to utilize them. And that's one of the reasons why when this drought response plan was put together was for that very reason, because of the natural recharging that happens with the Big Arc River. Again, if we outside of a drought, we would encourage more people to put wells in because we're using less water from Cheney on a regular basis. So kind of in a tough spot right now. Because we've heard from some people that have had to go deeper with their wells or they're just not using them anymore because they're not getting water. So even a local aquifer is being impacted, but domestic wells in general, they just don't have enough impact. They really don't.
Do you have a read on what the percentage is? Because I was gonna have that same question too, and maybe Bill wouldn't put it this way, but advocate for one water policy for one people, right? I mean, but maybe what you're saying is it's just not enough people have wells to make it.
It's increasing pretty dramatically.
Yeah, what our projections have looked at over time, it's not enough impact. I like your comment about the one water policy because that's really where we're going with this whole recycling project that we're moving forward on is the one water for everybody. We're going to continue looking at the impact of domestic wells, even if and I've got a map, and I couldn't tell you the number, how many thousands of wells there are in Wichita, but when you just break down the numbers, it just has so little impact overall.
I mean, I know the water table fills from top and from the hydraulic system in the ground, but how long does it take for the water from the top to get back into the table here? Do we know? Do we have an idea?
I don't know. It varies in different areas because you've got, and you know, especially as you go out east, there's a lot less wells because of the changing geology and the clay soils and everything else. You can get some perched water in some places and some that's a lot deeper. There's so many variables. I've got a guy that works for me that could answer that question for you, but unfortunately, it's kind of hard. There's so many factors involved in that.
I don't know that you have to go that deep into this specific thing, but I just haven't heard a lot about how businesses are pitching in on this. I hear a lot about how we're going to protect them, but at the end of the day, we can't drink plains. You know, so how are we looking towards some of our biggest, what's the percentage of business use of this water that we're talking, and how, and then how are we going to ask these businesses when, so we don't get to stage 3, to either help mitigate the cost of bringing in, some of these things, or reduce their own water usage to support more usage by people rather than businesses?
So 90% of our number of customers are residential, and they use about 50% of the water consumption. So we've got 15,000 commercial customers that use 40 to 50%. Some of it's from our wholesale customers too of the water. Our drought response plan was purposely meant to not impact businesses until we get to stage 4. I don't even know where you begin on 15,000 commercial customers to ask them to change their business practices, to change their business model, to change their financial model, and start saving more of them. I think that's at stage 4. That businesses then have to show a 15% reduction in water use.
But they're the majority of the.
Well, they're not. I mean, it's basically,
in
they're
terms
not
of
the
like
majority. They're actually less than what residential customers use.
But they use
Commercial is
half of
40
what-
to 45%. It could be up to half. Yeah. Our goal with this plan is to not impact businesses, not impact people's livelihood, not impact jobs. And I think that makes sense. Outdoor water use is discretionary. I know people like to water their yard. They like to have a green yard. The fact is outdoor water use is 100% discretionary. People, even outside of a drought, don't have to water their yard. It's their choice to water their yard. That's why it makes sense to impact that area.
Yeah, no, I understand. And then just then thinking back to that outdoor, like, how are you evaluating what is a food garden for people?
We're not. I mean, if people ask, we tell them you can hand water. I'm not gonna go out and look and see what it is. If somebody's got a garden that provides any type of vegetable or food or whatever it is, we advise that they can water it. So.
I really like the concept that I hope becomes firmer into a plan for the advanced recycling of the water from Spirit. That's a really excellent idea.
We'll have some more opportunities to look at industrial recycling too. But boy, if we could get to a point of creating a potable source of water from that recycling that water that's going to the river now, that's just such a deal breaker long term.
So of the usage in residential setting, how, like, are there guidelines for, like, how long should a shower last? I don't know, like, what kind of, like.
You got a personal.
I mean, but like, I mean, I grew up in the energy crisis in the 70s, and I remember, we had little decals on the light switches and all the stuff to tell you to do this and all those things that I still am just, it was beat into me on some level.
Yeah.
So, like, how do we kind of make that kind of a culture shift? Like,
A great question, and I actually was speaking with some of my staff about that just last week, that I think we need to start talking about that more. We do have some information on statewichitawater.com about that, because we've had that question. Again, 20% of our annual water use is outdoor irrigation. I don't mean to belabor that, but it's a lot of water. But hey, it adds up. My daughter alone uses more water than most families probably in one day. And it drives me crazy, and I need to put some type of restrictor on the shower. But we've had people that have talked about doing their own recycling, which I think for watering their plants, that while the shower is warming up, they capture that water. Anything that's gonna go down the drain, they'll use that. Restaurants are melting ice at the end of the night and using that to water their. So I think there's some innovative ways to do things. But to your point, we're starting to talk about that too. We're gonna start providing information to hotels. Get a lot of rooms in a hotel, right? Somebody comes in from out of town, they have no idea we're under drought restrictions. Most hotels have that sign that says, if you want to conserve water, use towel again, whatever it might be. Probably more impactful if they saw something that the local community is under drought restrictions, and maybe they would use less water. Fairly big impact, right? If you look at all the hotels that we've got.
I was wondering too, just on public education generally, like, who's working on that kind of a plan, and as far as like what businesses could do, I mean, I think that's a place where some businesses could actually be really impactful, is to help, especially those of us who are in businesses that touch the public at a large rate. Like, we could be facilitators of some of that education. Like, where's that conversation? Is that something that's going to be coming up, or?
I think it is going to need to be, as we continue to battle through this and things, especially if things don't get better soon. We have a communications team that does a really good job. If you're on any forms of social media, you see a lot of stuff about the drought often. And it talks about ways to save water, it talks about our rebate program, things that you can do, but to your point, and especially as we move into this whole approach to recycling water reuse, we're gonna really be looking for the community to get on board and talk about the values and the virtues of this type of program. But I appreciate you mentioning that. We're more than willing to provide information to people, to anything that we've got some information from, as an example, from K-State Extension about the proper way to take care of your yard, drought or not.
Yeah.
And the way to save water long-term. I think that's great information to get out
I mean,
there.
like, we're always looking for content for our stupid company newsletter. I was like, well, why wouldn't this be something we could just stick a link?
I
in
would
there?
be happy to get you anything you want. If you want to be on a list of this.
It's not stupid, I love it.
It would be
Sorry.
wonderful. No, but I get what you're saying. That'd be great.
How about these data centers? And I know that they have some in Kansas City in Missouri, but they're being proposed in Kansas, but are there any currently? And I know that there was some controversy at the state house where some of us thought that they were cooling systems that are required for those data centers would use water. So is that a problem for?
It can be, to that point, our goal long-term here and where this recycling and reuse can be such a big deal for us is we want people to be able to water their yard, right? But we also want to be attractive to businesses. If we're going to continue to grow, we hear a lot working with the Greater Wichita Partnership that they've got different types of businesses that would like to come to Wichita, but we can't provide water, it's going to be a deal breaker. To your question, I've heard discussion about potential data centers in Wichita. They can be very high water use. We had a semiconductor company that was going to come to Wichita several years ago, major water use. In fact, when we were looking at them at their water demands at one point in time, we had to draw the line and say, based on our long-term projections and growth, we can't provide that much water. What's happening with most of those businesses, they've recognized that they've got to recycle themselves, right? They just have to because they can't even afford the cost of that much water to really be able to conduct business. But it's a part of what we look at. We can't regulate the types of businesses that are gonna locate in Wichita, but they'll have to make the decision whether we've got the supply and we will make a decision on whether we bankrupt ourselves on water for one business, which isn't gonna happen. So that's part of our process that we work through too.
So when that kind of thing comes up, do you guys someone with the city actively engage with them? Look at other options, including chillers and geothermal cooling?
Generally, we haven't gotten that deep. We asked that question.
Okay.
Especially based on us providing to them that we can't give you that much water. You're gonna have to do something different. And I think most businesses realize that needs to become a part of their model. We get questions about car washes a lot, right? I will never stop being amazed at how so many car washes can stay in business. Those car washes use mostly recycled water, a recycled filtration system. They couldn't stay in business if they didn't. It's still water. The city's not gonna be able to regulate the types of businesses. They shouldn't, and they'll never be able to. So you still keep seeing more car washes. They can only make that work because they're recycling most of the water that they're using.
The city can regulate businesses though.
Well, and I don't want to get into that conversation too much. The city of Wichita, just like any other community, only based on zoning code, are gonna struggle to say, you can't bring this type of business to Wichita. If they're in the right spots, generally people can build a business that they want to build.
But we still can't. So I mean, it's not that we can't regulate.
No, it's not, and I'm not gonna get into an argument with you, but this has been proven out in other communities, and communities have lost. Every single time when they tried to regulate, especially on the car washes, they've lost every single time. I've got information on it for what it's worth, because this question comes up, the communities will generally not win out when they try to stop a certain type of business from building in their community. Zoning code comes into play on where you can put a certain type of business. Most communities are gonna be hard pressed to say you can't bring a business to town, so. I mean, they can try to do whatever they want, but I just have seen other places that it doesn't work too well. And that's not my business to get into.
You mentioned credits for rain barrels and stuff like that. Does the city have any plans to help people transition to more drought-friendly lawns?
We've talked about that, haven't perfected that yet, mostly because we've studied what other communities have done and there's just not enough money. You know, our rebates now are $50, $30 for devices. Start to get into pretty high cost to convert lawns. I think it's possible that we could look at some drought tolerant landscaping, small, not a yard. But we're still looking at that. I've got a study that we've looked at over time from one in Utah, and I don't know how they did it, but I mean, it was rebating people $5,000 per yard. The only way that's gonna happen is if everybody's rates go up, and then at what point in time did we really break even, right?
You gotta pay for that somehow.
Yeah. Anything else?
Thank you.
I have 2 questions. I was just looking at the website and I couldn't find it, because I have to reseed my yard. What is the alternative to fescue?
Buffalo grass.
Anything
I-
else?
Sorry,
Anything else?
anything else?
We, on all of our city projects, use buffalo grass.
Buffalo grass.
Yeah, so it used to be a lot of people would put in Bermuda, but it's just so invasive and I would recommend finding it.
Okay, and then my second question is, going back to one of the slides, you mentioned one of the alternatives possibly in the long run is recycling water instead of letting it discharge into the rivers. How does that impact the water rights of other cities that also depend on?
Good question.
Okay.
So one of the things we are reconfirming now, because you're right, so everybody's downstream of somebody, right? There are a lot of communities that count on certain flows, and there are communities downstream that count on the natural flows of the Ark River that we can't intercept. We have the water rights to this treated water that we are putting into the river. So there are no downstream water rights committed from the water that we're treating and putting in the river. Great question though, because that, I say if you live in New Orleans, the water that you drink there has been treated 11 different times by the time it gets there. And so there's a massive combination as it goes down. So state regulation helps determine who's got what water.
Thanks.
3 hopefully short ones. We're doing that pipe cost per mile.
I don't have that, but I can get that.
So you foot the bill
They
because it was
pay
to their
the
benefit.
cost, yes.
How long roughly is that pipe?
Oh, it's probably 2 miles roughly.
So that would be the type of thing that we could use.
That's a lot smaller pipe than the one that we have to do 15 miles, but yeah.
And then third and final one, what's in our way? What's holding us back from publishing a list of the actual businesses who have filed for and obtained exemptions to?
Required to file for an exemption. It's included on drought response plan. Any business is where economic activity comes from water use is exempt, but it's what's listed in our drought response plan as examples are nurseries, sod companies, golf courses, car washes. I don't know that I've had any other reform or requests saying, are we exempt, but they're not listed. We don't keep track of them.
We're just getting complaints about why do they get to water when we don't?
And I hear those often, and I explain to people about how that works and limiting the impact of businesses. And I will tell you that it's not so much, if they're watering, it's for what they're doing for their business. Obviously the golf courses, that creates a lot of concern for most people's, but most businesses, it's not watering their yard, it's using water for their business.
It's watering grass on days when that quadrant of town isn't supposed to water.
Well, if that's the case, then we need to know about that, and because they're not supposed to be doing that, we're not allowing them to do
And
that.
so the exemption is for business use,
Yeah,
not
it's for
for
business use, not for
keeping their
watering
petunias
their
pretty.
grass. It's not, yeah,
Okay.
we need to hear about those. If you're so inclined. Thank you for bearing with me, I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. There is no one on the scheduled public agenda. Is there anyone here to speak on the off agenda? Okay, moving on to new business, improvements to Second Street North on St. Francis to Main. Back, Sean.
Sean Mays, Chief Design Engineer for the city. I'm gonna talk about Second Street from St. Francis to Main. Should have a PowerPoint. If not, I can run through this. Joining me tonight are Michael Bailey and Dakota McKee with Trans Systems. They are the design consultant for this project, so if you have any hard questions, they're gonna answer. I'll just go ahead and start. A little bit of background. July 16th, 2024, the city council approved an agreement with Trans Systems Corp to start with the design concept for this section of Second Street between Main and St. Francis. February 10th, 2025, the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Board approved the concept. So a couple months ago. Like I said, the project, next slide, please. The next slide just shows the limits. So there's actually an alley here halfway between St. Francis and Emporia. Then there's an alley between Main and Water. Those are pretty much the limits. This section of Second Street we redid 7 years ago or so. This section here was done with St. Francis when it was converted to two-way, probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago. So just give you a little idea of where the project's at. Go through some of the existing conditions. So again, this is just to the west of St. Francis. You can see this pavement looks pretty good. You get to the alley is where it starts to really get kind of beat up. So this is the section where we would start there, the alley between St. Francis and Emporia. Talk about the existing lane configuration. So you've got north side, buffer bike lane, and I say buffered in the sense there is no physical barrier here, but there is a gap between the two white lines that separates the bike lane over here from the travel lane over here. And then you have parallel parking on the south side. You can't see it real well, but there are stalls marked out through here. So that's on the south side. What we're going back with is very, very similar. I'll get through that when we get the concept. This probably shows about as good as any. The existing pavement condition is pretty rough, and that's a big part of doing this project. This is at Main Street. Again, same lane configuration. I will talk about at Main and Broadway. Right now, there is a dedicated left turn lane too. So it's actually 3 lanes. You know, this right now is 2 lanes westbound for the vast majority of it. And then you get to Main and Broadway, there's actually a dedicated left turn lane to be able to go south. We're actually going to put on-street parking. Due to the one-way conversion that we did downtown, or in the process of wrapping up with everything. Once that's done, you're not gonna travel all the way down to go to Main. You're gonna go to whatever street more likely and go down. So we don't think those turn lanes will be needed in the future. You can still make that movement. You're just gonna make it through lane in this area. Next slide, I think, is the last one, the existing conditions. A lot of the existing inlets have a metal top. These are actually newer versions of those. So we will go back with something like that, just to give you a little bit of idea of what we're looking at. That alley, right before you get to that building, there's an alley there. That's roughly where our limits will be when we tie back in. to the existing pavement in that location. Next slide. Talk about design concept. So this is the alley, St. Francis here, this is the alley between Emporia, that's roughly where our limits start. We are putting a new water line in for the vast majority of the project. North, and when those streets will be done 10, 15, 20 years ago, depending on what street you're talking about. So we're redoing an 8-inch water line throughout the corridor. We are doing curb extensions, so you identify on-street parking on the south side for a couple different reasons. The lengths that you have to walk if you're a pedestrian, your length across the travel lane is not as wide. Lane configuration, again, pretty much the same. 2 westbound through lanes, 8 feet on-street parking on the south side, parallel parking, and then a 4-foot buffer with a 6-foot bike lane on the next slide. Not a whole lot different here that I want to talk about. Again, bulb outs we're doing, our curb extensions that we are doing at intersections. You do it at each block on the south side to be able to better identify that. Go ahead with the next one. I think is it. Broadway and Main are both going to be raised intersections. Similar to what we did in Second Mosley and Second Mead, probably about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when we redid that section of it. Curb goes away, comes up, so you have a little bit of ramp up. So if you're doing 40, 50 mile an hour, it's not a smooth transition going through those. So hopefully it deters people, because this is obviously a straight run. There are no curves in it, so you can go a lot faster than what probably is safe for anybody else coming off one of the side streets due to sight triangles, because buildings being in property lines, or pedestrians walking through there. So that'll happen at Broadway and Main Street. Next slide. Again, tying back in, it's the end of our water line. One of the components of the raised intersections is you have to go in and be able to manipulate storm sewer, because you're obviously creating a dam potentially when you're bringing that up. So we got to manipulate some of the storm sewer in the area. So you have to have underground storm sewer in that intersection to be able to make it work. It's part of it too. Next slide. Again, just an example of the raised intersections. So if you haven't seen it, this is Second Street heading west. This is Mosley right here. Mead's 2 blocks down the way. These arrows are referencing, hey, this ramps up. So if you hit it much over 30 mile an hour, it's a pretty good bump. And there's signage to tell you it's coming up, but it stops people from going 40, 45, 50 mile an hour down the stretch.
I have a quick question.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. So we get asked a lot about speed bumps and all of that stuff. So I love these tables, by the way, to slow people down. But how are these different than like speed bumps in like as far as emergency vehicles go, like EMS or fire, or going over these? Would they just not use these streets, or?
I don't know what the fire department is going to do as far as
But you know
these.
what I'm talking
I have not
about.
heard any issues with these.
I haven't either. I just, a lot of people ask us for speed bumps, but we tell them we can't do it because of emergency vehicles.
Part of the thing with like speed bumps, typically what data will show is they'll slow down for that bump and then speed back up.
Okay.
So that's why we are putting these every so often strategically. And it's also, we've even done some, and the one down by the ballpark isn't bad. But if you go up to, I want to say the one I know of is Manhattan, they just did a crosswalk. And it's not great because it's like one wheel's on one side, one wheel's on the other side, because it's not wide enough. So it creates some problems there as far as just even coming up to a stop. But that's why we are doing these strategically every so often too, is to stop some of, rather than just speeding up and going around.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide. One of the things we are looking at this, I know I mentioned the buffered bike lane that's there now. We are looking at some type of physical barrier. We have not made a determination on that. So if anybody has any feedback, we will take that into consideration. I just brought a couple of examples here to talk through. I believe these are both in Denver. We would want some type of physical barrier, would not have to be in every location. You would have gaps. Obviously, if you look at the way our streets work, typically you're gonna have a crown and the water has to be able to get back to the curb and gutter and it goes through an inlet somewhere. So it makes it pretty hard to have this a physical barrier all the way through. At least the way our streets are designed currently. You have delineators here, you have planters, you have some more or less parking blocks, rubberized parking blocks that go in is another example. Next slide are a couple more examples of these. Here you do kind of have the physical barrier. If we would be looking at something like this, we'd have to be looking at how we get water over that or through that. Because that looks pretty similar to almost like a curb that is just mountable to some extent. Like if you go in a new subdivision, what we install is mountable curb. It's called roll curb. So a lot of times they won't even take it out for the driveway. You just hit a bump and go up over it because you can put your driveway anywhere you want on the lot. You don't have to figure out where driveways are before there's a house there. And then you have some elevated barriers here. And then you have some, when you get close to the intersection, something more low to the ground, that if somebody was to drive over it, probably wouldn't do as much damage. You can see here with the planter, actually kind of as a kickstand or a place to stop and rest as they're waiting there for the light to turn. Then just a couple examples we're looking at. The bike ped board liked the idea. They did not make a recommendation on how to be this one or that one. So we would probably go back at some point once we get the final determination on what we feel comfortable with. Probably need to talk to some of the public works staff from a couple of these locations to see how their maintenance is working. Colorado's a decent option because they have the snow plows and how do you deal with that. We have some of the delineators out on 21st Street between 119th and 135th and half up are gone already because of what looks like a snow plow must have just taken the ones on the south side of the road completely out for the whole section. Okay, next slide. So the approved budget for the project is $500,000. The adopted CIP currently has $200,000 in 2025 for art, $6 million in 2026 for construction. So the total project cost is looking at $6.7 million. We are going back with all concrete due to the alleys, the intersections. And typically what we've started to do is outside of your radius, where your radius ends on your intersections, we'll go a certain distance, somewhere between 100 and 150 feet. If you put asphalt in there, a lot of times at those intersections, you'll start pushing from all the brake action you have. So we start going concrete there. By the time these are short blocks, by the time you get there, it doesn't make sense to have a little bit of asphalt in between. We're just going concrete the whole piece. The art budget is general obligation funds. So what we will do is after we get design concept, hopefully approved tonight, and go on to city council, get approved, we will do an RFP to hire consultants, hire an artist or artist to look at what to do with this, and to see where we can get this stuff. There's a lot. I don't want to go back to it now because I forgot to mention it, but if you go down to like Maine on the south side, there are a lot of dump banks that actually come all the way up. You'll see vents in the sidewalk section. So there's going to be a limit on where we can put trees, where we can put benches, trash cans, some of those type of amenities. We typically look at a project like this. The artwork's going to be, it's going to have to be situated in specific areas, and it's not going to just probably be able to be spread throughout due to some of the utility constraints. Next slide. So next steps is intent is to present this to the city council on May 13th. Construction would start in the fall of 2026 and be complete by the summer of 2027. Probably talking 6 to 9 months of construction. With that, I think that's the last slide. Yep. So open it up for any questions you have and hopefully recommendation to approve the design concept. Yes.
I just have one more. I highly and I'm enthusiastic and encourage the bike lane separators, something like that. Anecdote is bad data, but I've been hit by a car on that street, and I know several people who have also while riding bike. And even like a minimal dimensional something in there seems like it would help. My question is that something? I mean, obviously maybe there's some regulations around it, but is that something that maybe could be combined with the art? You know, as if we're designing planters within a particular design range or something, like maybe an artist would be able to look at that project.
That's something we could consider, yes, as part of that artist RFP. It can get hit pretty easy by traffic, so do you really want to put something that have sentimental or value to it out there? I don't know.
But yeah, again, like the actual division to separate out the car lanes from the bike lanes, I think, like, especially if we get more of that and then start putting it.
Well,
more and
ideally,
more
whatever
in
we
the
come
city.
up with is something we can hopefully implement, and then on the other section of Second Street that we built not too long ago, that you could go back and do that fairly simply and not have to spend a bunch of money.
Same with First Street.
Yeah, so you could do some of that, but we'll have to see where we end up with which option, or maybe something completely different than what those. Yeah.
So I was gonna say on First Street, leading right up toward Mead, we have the rubber. They're tall, they're rubbery, they're bendy, they're permanent, they're permanent, I mean, maybe one, not at the most two have been bent by somebody bashing into them, but they're flexible that way, they don't have the water issues. Saying that something that could work there, maybe not as pretty.
Yeah, and part of that is, that's, the delineators are what we had out on 21st Street, so one snowplow took 3/4 of the ones on the south side out. So there's some maintenance parameters that those aren't the
Yes.
greatest, so that's,
Right.
that's one of the things we
Right.
have to weigh.
I figured,
Yep.
yeah, they're
But they
just,
are great because of the vertical element. So some of the other examples you saw that were kind of small on the ground don't have quite the same vertical element to visually tell people where to go.
I think the Walton Foundation did a pilot program in Fayetteville a few years ago about various delineator types and usage and whatever, to come up with like, what's the best and what's gonna, I mean, I know they don't have snowplows, but maybe worth your time to kind of look to see what they came out with. Because they certainly spent a lot of money doing it.
Yeah.
Those tall things I know got knocked down almost immediately when they put them up, and I was like, what the hell are these things? And
I don't suppose there's any chance First and Second Street will ever be turned back into two-way streets.
Because of,
In your
because of the connection to I-135,
Yeah,
it's very complex.
yeah, okay.
So when we looked at the downtown streets and stuff, we kind of said that's, when we looked at the planning portion of the downtown streets, they kind of said, no, we're not gonna push for that because of everything.
Yeah.
Maybe if they redo I-135 at some point and you make different connections.
Second to that entrance or something.
So I don't see it happening probably
Yeah.
in my lifetime.
Okay, well, there goes that hope. It makes sense, yes.
Got to, first of all, just as a thought, on the issue with snow plows and other road service equipment. One thing, when it's new construction, that might be considered is using, lack of a better term, I'm gonna call it GPS tracking or GPS guidance in those barriers, or whatever you call them, that would help the drivers in an avoidance standpoint when they're doing the maintenance work, like whether it be snow plowing or street sweeping or whatever, damaging.
Part of that is hopefully the 4-foot barrier, we can do something so it's not right next to the lane, but you want to push it over to the lane to make the driver through the through lane feel like it's narrower too, so it's kind of a, you're looking at two different components of it and trying to make the best decision of what to do.
All right. The second one, and this is probably more a question for you. I see the little line on there that says it's funded by sales tax. So is the anticipation that this will fit within upcoming year's budget, or will it increase the mill levy?
This is local sales tax, so this is what funds Kellogg, that was passed in the late 80s, early 90s. That's what this local sales tax is, so this isn't changing anything, and it works in the pro forma for the current CIP. So any project that's in there that's focused, funded by the local sales tax, works in the pro forma based upon current sales projections.
At the current rate?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
So was the accessibility board consulted on in this project at all, in terms of the pedestrian signaling?
As far as, it went to the bike ped board in February. They approved it. They talked through some of the different components of it.
The accessibility board.
Accessibility board.
Yeah, the city has an accessibility board.
No, we did not take it there. I mean, we could obviously take it there, but what are you looking to get out of that? I mean, we're already reducing the crosswalk length. We'll be making ADA improvements.
The audible pedestrian signals.
That would be done with the project. It would be this intent,
It's
if
in
you're talking
regards
about
to the-
APS.
To the article.
It might help address that real quick, and assuming you're asking in regards to the article that was in the Eagle. Yeah. So, we don't, these types of projects, we don't take all these projects to the accessibility board. It's not that we can't, when we haven't. Just real quick, the story didn't quite tell exactly what's happened in either way. We've worked very closely with the accessibility board over time. We've worked very closely with the Federation of the Blind local chapter over time on strategically placing of APS signals. There's federal guidelines that are not formally in place yet that will require soon that they be placed with all signals. So on all future projects, we will be including those. And so it very well could be on these at the timing that we will at the time. There's many challenges with them. In the downtown area, over the course of time, there was a point in time when the accessibility board said, don't put them downtown. That was the guidance we were following. It made sense for a variety of reasons. The sounds got drowned out by the taller buildings, by the traffic. They were ineffective, they were confusing. Whether it seems like a right way to do things or not, a lot more people started moving downtown. They had concerns about the volume of the accessibility signals, so we were trying to work with that too. We lowered the volume, people crossing couldn't hear them. We have a plan in place where we look at intersections, and depending on how the geometrics of how the intersections are set up, the pedestrian expectations versus driver expectations, it's been working well for us. Very few communities just blanket everything with APS signals because there's so many challenges to them. We've worked with Envision over the years. They work closely with the blind and visually impaired community in Wichita. And they plan out routes for folks where they're going to and from work, where they're going to and from home, places that they might be going. We have put in APS signals in response to those requests. But there's a lot that goes into that I'm not sure that the article fully addressed. But I'm getting some additional information from the city council tomorrow so that they understand how all that works. But the policies that we follow are for all projects, whether this goes to the Access Advisory Board or not. If that helps, hopefully.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
From attending many bicycle and pedestrian advisory boards, nothing has changed on the engineering. As much as a lot of us cyclists would love to have our own special little corner of the world for a buffered bike lane, in Kansas, they never can be made to work through an engineering standpoint. Number one, snow plows, anything that's close to the ground, that snow plow is just gonna lift it up and cut it off. Never works there. The other one, and I encourage any cyclist, go to Northwest Street and Northwestdale at the bike lane that's there. Also go to Sycamore and First Street, go to the bike lanes that are there. In both of those cases, we can't get street sweepers in there, and they got a ½ inch of sand. And unless you're riding on fat boys, that's just gonna shred your tires. So the only buffer lane that we can have is a visual separation of cars go here, bikes go there. If you make the bike lane too narrow, you can't get the street sweeper down it because it's just gonna be tearing all that stuff out. And ultimately it boils down to is we've got to use our radar, known as our ears, to make sure that they don't run us over. That's why some of us get on Douglas because we have no other choice. So I like the idea of buffered bike lanes, but we've got snow and sand in different ways than everywhere else in the nation, and it's never worked anywhere in this town yet.
Gary, how do other communities clean their bike lanes, or how do they maintenance them? I guess, or maybe.
We have a smaller street sweeper now to where we actually can do some of it.
Okay.
So there is a
But
small.
it's not very cost effective. But not to dispute what Sean said, we do, but that's a resource challenge. If we start looking at too many of these, and I'll tell you, Second Street's not the best example, but one of the things a lot of communities have run into is trash service. If you start looking at putting some type of buffer where you've got multiple driveways, you gotta have, so you've got these sections of buffer that are this long, literally between driveways, because you gotta get trash access. They can't fit. There are so many challenges associated with them. There is the right conditions in certain communities where access is limited. Certain types of thoroughfares, boulevards, whatever they might be, where it makes sense. A lot of our streets, it's just never gonna work well to the point of being able to clean them. So we're gonna continue looking and trying and see what might fit, but
Part of that is also, it takes several weeks, if not months, to clean up the sand from the winter, correct?
it does. We're working on that now. We should be done here in about.
If you get some rain, it helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be done by the time the next snow flies.
It will be.
Right?
Okay, any other questions?
We are looking at a recommendation for the design concept approval. Sorry, I didn't put that on the slide. That is the next step.
Anyone like to make a motion to approve the design concept?
Move to approve.
Second? Anybody?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Right.
Moving on to 2025 police funding, CDBG, and ESG funding.
Tyler Young with the Housing and Community Services Department. I'm a management analyst. I'm here tonight to talk about the 2025-26 annual action plan for our entitlement grants, CDBG, home, and ESG. Just to give you a little bit of background here, the city receives an annual allocation of funds for community development activities from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or as you've heard many times. It's funded activities aligned to the city's goal of creating a livable and sustainable community. And these funds are used to create strong, sustainable, inclusive communities and affordable housing. So just to give a little some more backgrounds, y'all, some of y'all might have been on the board last year when we, I think we came via Zoom, but we came about the consolidated plan. The consolidated plan, we're required by HUD to produce one of those every 5 years. That's for the needs and priorities of the city. That's every 5 years. Every year, we have to do what's called the annual action plan, which is again, is why I'm here right now. This HUD also requires us to submit that plan as well, and that details projects and activities that align with the consolidated plan. So the annual action plan and the consolidated plan have to go hand in hand. Like we can't propose activities or projects that aren't in the consolidated plan. So they have to work hand in hand. These plans, so like the annual action plan, this serves as our application for these 3 grants below. This is some more breakdown, and from the rest of this presentation, I'll be referring to the acronyms. We live in an acronym-heavy world in the housing department. So CDBG is used for a wide range of community development needs. Home is all about affordable housing and creating affordable housing for low-income households. And ESG is used to address the issue of homelessness. For the annual action plan, we have a public comment period. Again, that's why I am here today, and that began on March 28th. We're attending all the April DAB meetings to solicit public comment and feedback. And the second year action plan is due to HUD on May 15th, and it will allocate funds for the period of July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026, and that is our program year. You'll hear me refer to program year throughout this presentation, and so that's what I'm referring to. July 1st through June 30th is our program year. So I'm gonna kind of camp out on this slide for just a minute. We're doing something a little bit differently this year with our action plan and our budget. In prior years, we would have at Alex Day, for example, we get our allocation of CDBG money. Our current program year is 24-25. We have 6 years to spend that money. For CDBG, you have 6 years to expend those funds. In prior years, if we had projects or if we had some funding that didn't come under contracts and we got to the end of the program year and we hadn't spent out that grant totally, those will just be kept aside as prior year funding. And so this year, what we're doing, we're taking all the prior year resources that we have right now and we're pushing them all into our budget for this action plan. So every amount of prior year funding that we have, we're putting it in this next action plan year. An example below that, those are our current allocations for CDBG, home, and ESG. Right now, we do not have the award amounts for 25-26. We haven't got those from HUD yet. And so
I think we're going to.
Well, actually, we got word from our HUD rep that we should be getting those here in the next few weeks. So we'll see what they are. So this is what those totals right now are what we're operating on for our current program year. So that's the totals that we have to use for our planning and discussion for this next action plan for this next program year. So if we do get those allocations and they are, so more or less, we'll have to adjust, accordingly. So thanks. We'll start with CDBG. CDBG, like I said, is for a wide range of community development needs. It can be used for economic development. It can be used towards public facilities and improvements, housing, and public services. Next. In order for a project or activity to qualify for CDBG, it must be one of 3 national objectives, and those are on the screen right there. It must be used for eligible spending activities. At least 70% of the spending must benefit low to moderate income persons. And when we're talking specifically about public services, here at the city, we are public services heavy. Nationally, there is a 15% public services cap. However, here in the city of Wichita, we're actually grandfathered in at that 1.1 million. So it's about 30% of our actual CDBG awards. So we can spend quite a bit more towards public services in the city of Wichita right now. So starting off with infrastructure projects, we are looking to allocate, and these are some of the prior year resources I was referring to, $379,000 towards infrastructure projects. Those can be park improvements, bus shelters, sidewalks, street paving, stormwater sewer drainage projects. Next. We are looking to allocate $100,000 for demolition and clearance. We typically operate with an MOU with MABCD, and they use that funding for the demo and clearance of blighted structures around the city. Certain areas.
What's the average demolition cost per site?
That is a good question.
I'm just curious how far.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So I don't know the exact cost, but I know like back in program year 23-24, we allocated about $50,000 in MABCD, and that took I believe it was 13 or 14 structures.
About 10 grand.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah,
That's not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for sure, it goes fast.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we're looking to allocate 100,000 towards that, this next program here. We have some prior year funds. These are from our section 108 loan proceeds, almost $621,000. And then $379,075, that totals $1 million. We're looking to allocate that towards the Plainview Community Center. That's again for our construction of the new community center in Plainview. Multi-agency center, we're looking to allocate $1 million of CDBG money there towards to building non-congregate shelter, 25 units of non-congregate shelter at the NAC. And there's a breakdown of all those that I just mentioned. Housing activities, this is for our home repair program. We're looking to allocate about a little over 1.2 million. The home repair program, that is for income eligible homeowners to go towards repair projects of their house. Basically, those can be up to $25,000, and it's for health, safety, repairs, those type of things. But we're looking to allocate, like I said, 1.2 million for that. Acquisition, disposition, and rehabilitation. We have some priority resources. 1.4 million going towards some acquisition and structural rehab projects. We have 200,000 going towards one there. We're setting aside 387,000 for a to be determined, and then 900,000. We're rehabbing a group of 12 of our former public housing units. We're looking to rehab those so that they can be turned around and used as affordable housing.
Do you recover any income or capital after those rehabs are finished?
So so we'll have to put that back into other projects after that. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you do capture something.
I'm sorry, and from what? What, I just didn't understand.
These are rehab
You rehab them and sell them then?
Yeah. There's a breakdown of those activities. That allows us to allocate some funds towards our administration of the CDBG grants. And there's a breakdown of that, 600,000 towards administering and planning. I mentioned public services earlier. These are the current public services that we got going on right now. Yeah, they're going. 1.1 million, I guess a little over, $103,310 is going for housing first program delivery. That's for our full-time housing first staff in our office. Recipient public services, $475,000. We have distributed amongst those subrecipients. We have some domestic violence shelters, some youth services, and homeless services. Those subrecipients right there, we had what was called the Grants Review Committee last spring. They convened, and they're the ones that met and discussed and determined where that $475,000 was going towards. Also, public services, we have the Office of Community Services, $385,000. That's for Atwater, Colvin, and Evergreen. That's for our community service reps and admin assistants. And then we have $200,000 going towards the Way to Work program. That's our summer youth employment program, where we are able to find employment for kids ages 14 through 17. And so we're looking to have about 175 kids this summer that'll be employed from June and July. And there's a breakdown of well. Lastly, with CDBG, we still have some CDBG CV funds. Those were the funds that we received during COVID. And so we have a little under $595,000 that we're looking to allocate towards homeless activities to reach the homeless community. Some administrative costs and indirect costs $108,000 going towards rapid rehousing. That's for rent and utilities. Care coordination teams, $200,000. Some encampment closure supplies, $20,000. Moving kits, bed supplies for homeless, $30,000, and then our HMIS system, that's the database that all the homeless service providers use. So we're gonna allocate some money for that as well. There's a breakdown of that. Moving on to home, I mentioned earlier, the home program is all about creating affordable housing. Again, we're sweeping all the previous year's funding that we have. And so we're looking to allocate a little over $11 million to the home program. Just like CDBG, home allows us to use some of that towards program administration and the indirect charges. There's a breakdown of some of the other things that we're looking to do. Home ownership, down payment assistance, 1.3 million, multifamily rehabs, almost 1.6 million. Tenant-based rental assistance, 1.7 million, and we have some home ARP funding. That's going to be go towards the development of 25 units of the non-congregate shelter and supportive services. That's about 4.6 million. Our housing development loan program and Chodo set aside 1.6 million. These funds are used for nonprofit and for-profit developers. Again, it's all about creating affordable housing. This can be housing rentals and home buyer units as well. But we're always looking for developers that want to be involved with this program.
What's the current value placed on the term affordable housing?
Well,
3,000.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, all
But
right, I just wondered.
Yeah, no, that's a good question.
Great.
Jot that down.
Okay, somebody else will ask you for sure.
It's the more affordable it is, the more people that will be housed, right? You can almost measure it by.
What's considered the value of affordable housing? What's that number? We use the term, but I've never understood it.
I think it's probably, I mean, not
My
for
housing
this,
is
but
barely
it's
affordable.
different for- I know, for everybody, it's like something different.
We're required to have a minimum of 15% go towards CHODOs, that's your community housing development organizations. That set aside requirement, that's managed within the HDLP program. And there is an affordable housing review board that looks at all those applications. And just some CHODO requirements there. I won't read them all to you, but basically a big one is experience serving our community, knowing what our community needs are, and have that purpose of developing affordable housing. There's a breakdown. And last, the emergency solutions grants that's used to address homelessness. And we'll check out what we can use ESG funding for homeless services, homeless prevention, and then rapid rehousing. Homeless services, that's your shelter operations, outreach, homeless prevention, that's rent utility assistance for those that are in danger of becoming homeless. And then rapid rehousing is the short-term rent utility assistance for homeless persons. First, homeless prevention. I mentioned the grants review committee. We had an RFP go out at the same time last spring for homeless prevention dollars as well, that $50,000. Catholic Charity St. Anthony's Family Shelter was chosen to administer that program, and they did for this program year. However, they did decline to continue that service for 25-26.
You know why?
Well, because it was mostly because the staff cost. I think it was $50,000, and they were having a lot of staff time to go towards that for kind of a smaller. So when we got word of that, we had to kind of get around and figure out what we could do with that $50,000 that needed to go towards prevention. And so within our department, we're looking to conduct a pilot program Basically, it's gonna target households that at one point or time or another were homeless and that are in danger of becoming homeless again. And so that's going to be rolling out for that targeted population, this next program year. And 157,000 and some change there is going towards encampment and unsheltered coordination. This was in response to the new camping ordinance. Basically, it's for funding. It's going to be for staff to be able to go out, and for those that are in encampments and that have been told to, pick up their stuff and go. Basically, it's for staff to go out and connect with them, get them resources. Basically, to help to prevent them from just going and setting up camp somewhere else. Basically, to give them resources for actual housing. 35,105 is going towards rapid rehousing. Again, that's for rent utility assistance for those that are literally homeless persons and enables them to move into permanent housing. And then just like the other two grants, we are able to charge some towards program administration. And those charges right there. There's a breakdown of our roads. Next steps, y'all are my last dab, so I think, see. But our public comment period runs through May the 5th. We're going to city council on May the 6th. Hopefully we get approval that day and then submission to HUD on May 15th. And if you are, as far as contacting me on the next slide, basically I'm here to solicit comment or feedback about the plan. So you can submit those tonight, or you can email me. There's my email address. You can call me. You can actually send me a letter if you want to. There's my address. That'd be fun. Actually, I haven't gotten a letter in a long time, so.
Be careful what you ask for.
That's true, yeah, that's true. If you wanna view the full plan, it's at that link right there. There's also copies of the plan here and at the other resource centers and libraries as well. And so, yeah, if you have any feedback or comments for me, I will be happy to take those now or whenever you like.
Anybody have any questions?
Get it and spend it if you can before it gets.
Well, that's what we're trying to
Spend it wisely.
Spend it wisely. No, but there's
Questions from the
just
staff?
real good thoughts.
Questions from the public? Do you need, comment regarding the community?
Yeah, if y'all think of anything between now and May the 5th, just hit me up on any, like I said, or let Honor know, she can get with.
Everybody send them a letter.
Write him a letter.
Letter.
And an email.
That'd be awesome.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna keep moving along. Tina, you're up. 2025-00041.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Christina Reed, the planning staff, here to present on 2025-00041. The applicant is requesting a conditional use to allow an accessory apartment. The property is zoned single family. And this is located at 1632 West Nevada Court, which is, it's right next to OK Elementary School. I'm just 350 feet west of Northwest Street. The site is currently developed with an 1,800 square foot single family residential dwelling constructed in 1965. The applicant is requesting this conditional use to construct a separate detached dwelling unit on the northeast side of the property. So according to the site plan that they submitted, and this was on page 5 of your report, the proposed accessory apartment will measure 608 square feet. And it'll be within the given setbacks of the property. There is an easement in the back of the property, so they will be just south of that easement. Accessory apartments, they're subject to section 3D6A of the Unified Zoning Code. There are just some supplementary use regulations that they have to follow should the conditional use request be approved. And the character of the neighborhood is low density residential. Everything that's surrounding is zoned single family. There's single family residences to the north, east, and west, and to the south is OK Elementary. There are no zoning cases associated with this property. The proposed use is in conformance with the community investments plan. The Wichita Future Growth Concept Map identifies the site as appropriate for residential uses, so an accessory apartment that is considered a residential use. When we look at the Wichita Places for People plan, there are 6 strategies that help guide the community in their actions to create walkable places within Wichita. So strategy 5 in the Places for People plan is to provide a diversity of housing options to attract new residents and to allow existing residents to remain in this established essential area. Strategy 6 aims to encourage infill and redevelopment that is contextual to the environment in which it's occurring. So essentially, the proposed accessory apartment is allowed as a permitting infill housing. And because one of the requirements, one of the regulations for accessory apartments is to be architecturally compatible with the main structure and the character of the neighborhood, we're continuing that harmonious development of the community.
Excuse me.
Yes.
So would that mean that the roof line on that needs to be either gable or hip roof to be architecturally compatible?
I would argue that. Ultimately, it's MAPCD that issues the building permits. But if you want to.
We'll get to that in the
Okay.
motion.
Staff is recommending that the conditional use be approved, subject to the conditions that are listed in your staff report on page 3. And this recommendation is based on the golden rules. So at the time I prepared the staff report, I didn't receive any public comment. The day before MAPC and the day of MAPC, there was a gentleman who came and spoke at MAPC, and he expressed some concern just with the, with the infill housing and its proximity to OK Elementary School. During MAPC, he said he wasn't sure how he felt because he needed more information on it, but generally he was not too much in favor of it. And that's the only comment that I received on that. So
Did he
let's go.
say why it was too close to the school?
He said it was too close to the school.
Yeah.
Said it's, I mean, if we look at the aerial map here, it is literally across the street from the school.
That's sort of the house.
Yes.
Yeah, so, okay, it's just, okay, I was having a hard time coming up with the difference between a house and a house.
So there'll be adequate
It's a house.
parking for both the primary residents and the.
Yes. So if we go down, if we scroll down to the site photos, I just want to show you a picture of the main house. So
Oh,
they
wow.
have a 2-car garage. And so the minimum parking requirement for a single family house is 1 parking space. And then for the accessory apartment, it's also 1 parking space. And so technically they meet the minimum requirements. They also have that circular driveway in the front there that can, just not for permanent parking per se, but if, guests come over or something needs to be dropped off. So we have the main house here on the upper left corner. To the upper right, we have behind the house is where they're proposing the accessory structure. And then bottom left, there is a shed there that is going to be removed. And then to the south, we have the elementary school. I have been in communication with the applicant, and he actually did have a family emergency, so he was not able to make it. He is not opposed to, the agent for the applicant is not opposed to pushing this to next month if you guys feel that that would be more appropriate. But I do have a text saying that he is in agreement with all the staff conditions listed in the staff report.
How's everybody feel? You have any questions for Christina? Open up to the public. Anyone have questions for Christina? Anyone want to make a motion?
I would move that we approve the request with the addition of an overlay that requires the accessory structure to be either gable or hip roof design.
So, yeah, I just want to, I want to just say there would be an added condition. So for conditional uses, you have conditions, and then for zoning changes, you have protective overlay. So totally in agreement with what you're saying, or I understand what you're saying, it's just that it would just be listed as an additional condition.
We have to what?
So there's a list of conditions that are listed on page 3. So what you're proposing is essentially a 7th condition that the accessory apartment has to have a hip or gable roof.
I understand that.
Okay.
Chooses modifying your motion.
Yes.
The language of your motion is to say condition rather than include the over.
Oh,
right?
okay.
That
All right.
is simply yes. the language.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right.
I'm not getting mad about Bill's roof.
Then there's zoning 2025 quadruple 05.
So the applicant is requesting a zone change from 2-family residential to neighborhood retail district. And this is on the northeast corner of 11th Street and North Waco. It's currently developed with a church built in 1954. And they are doing this request in order to allow retail on site. They propose to utilize the existing church for the business. So it is my understanding that they will still provide worship services and other things related to the place of worship. And then there will be a section of the church dedicated to retail.
Is that where the bin shop is?
Yes, okay, yep. So in August and September of 24, they received 2 separate notices of violation for utilizing the church as a retail use. So this is to come into compliance because retail is not a permitted use in 2-family zoning. So on page 2 of your staff report, you'll see what the development standards would look like in terms of setbacks, minimum or maximum height requirements, so on and so forth. And the applicant went as far as to add his own protective overlay to limit the development on site while accommodating their intended uses. So it would still allow all the uses permitted by right in 2-family zoning. And then in addition to retail, which is allowed in neighborhood retail zoning, provided it is ancillary to the church or place of worship. Signage shall be limited to the existing signage and what is allowed in neighborhood retail zoning, which is 132 square foot ground or pole sign as a single tenant. Cannot be located less than 15 feet to an adjacent property and no more than 1 building sign on each of the building's elevations. And then all signs are limited to 10% of the tenant space elevation with no sign exceeding 200 square feet in area. And then within the protective overlay, there's additional provisions on just lighting standards, making sure it's free of trash and debris, noise compatibility standards, and utility installation, making sure that's underground. Parking for retail requires 1 parking space per 500 square feet. The number of occupants on site for retail shall be limited to the number of parking spaces in the existing parking lot. And the reason for this is actually because of a variance that I'll talk about later in the staff report. But if they really so feel, the retail, the number of parking spaces for the retail can be reduced through an administrative application through the planning department. They still have to post signs, so people are notified about it, but it doesn't go through a public meeting like this does. They will have to require, they will have to install screening, which is a 6 to 8 foot solid fence on all side or rear lot lines or across the alley from a residential zoning district, and it abuts residential zoning on the north, south, east sides. They'll have to comply with the Wichita Landscape Code. However, because of the drought restrictions, we are working, with Public Works and Utilities as well as MECD. The drought or the landscaping doesn't have to be planted until drought restrictions are lifted. They still have to submit a landscape plan verifying that they meet all the requirements, or they will meet all the requirements, but the planting doesn't have to happen until after drought restrictions are lifted. And then there's something called compatibility and height, setback and height standards. This is essentially to prevent buildings from being too close to each other when they're higher in intensity and use, or being, having too tall of a building next to too short of a building, right? So that's what I talk about at the beginning of page 3. And the character of the neighborhood is low density residential. But if you notice in the zoning map, we would just want to go up to that one there. So we're seeing, in some of the intersections, we've got 13th and Waco, 10th and Waco, 18th and Waco. They similarly see neighborhood, either neighborhood retail or limited commercial at those intersections. A little bit of case history. In 1953, the Board of Zoning Appeals upheld an appeal from the church to construct a building without the required amount of parking spaces. So at the time, the zoning code required 50 parking spaces for the church, and the site only had 18. So that is just for the church standards. If anyone wants to come to the bin store, they still have to have the parking requirements for retail general. The requested zoning is in conformance with the community investments plan. The Wichita Future Growth Concept Map, as you can see, actually, we'll want to go one more back up. Yep, thank you. So everything that you see in like this pink, red color, we identify it as appropriate for commercial uses. And so this is located at a site that is appropriate for commercial uses. In terms of the Wichita Places for People plan, I'm going to go over the list of strategies again. Strategy 3 aims to improve the economic feasibility of commercial and service uses and the markets necessary to support them. And then strategy 6 is infill and redevelopment that is contextual to the environment in which it is occurring. So if we're seeing commercial at intersections along Waco, this redevelopment would be considered fairly appropriate. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. So what was the basis for that being considered the pinks? Why is that way?
This is based on future projections for land use. So it's called the 2035 Future Growth Concept Map. So they're projecting that this is and will be appropriate for commercial uses based on market calculations. It's in a different section of my department that I'm not fully well versed on, but just that's all the information I have about that. However, it is not in conformance with the Historic Midtown Plan. The Historic Midtown Plan, it encourages more of that neighborhood retail use at the intersection of 13th and Waco. And then we want, or the plan wants commercial uses more along West 13th Street North, leading up to 13th and Broadway. The Historic Midtown Future Land Use Map identifies a site as appropriate for religious congregational uses, which is what it is now, which aligns with the existing use but not the proposed use.
So are they operating now?
So because they are working to be in compliance, they're allowed to continue to operate because they have.
So I was gonna say, I feel like I've seen pallets out there.
Yes, they were delivering pallets when I took site photos. So staff is recommending approval of the zone change request, subject to protective overlay number 451, which is listed in your staff report. This recommendation is based on the golden rules. And then just skipping ahead to the last golden rule, staff received one phone call from a neighbor who was curious about the application, but just didn't have any specific opinion on it. They're just like, we received a letter in the mail, just wanted to learn more about it.
That's one of my questions is how many of the people who live around there actually own the properties they live at?
That is a great question because my understanding from my discussions with zoning enforcement is that they issued the notice of violation based on a number of complaints from the neighbors.
Yeah, I drive by there
Wait, say that
every day.
So zoning enforcement, they don't really have the time to go out and look for violations. They issued the violation following complaints from neighbors.
Right, which I'm pretty sure are mostly renters and not a lot of owners, because, sorry, I don't mean to jump in.
No, go ahead.
Like, so there's often 18-wheeler trucks there that block 11th and they throw out an enormous amount of trash. They stop traffic. It is a giant pain. They leave their stuff out on the parking lot sometimes just for hours and hours and hours. Like it's not like there's a well-oiled machine to get this stuff off a truck into the place. It is incommodious at best. And they also don't pick up their trash, but that's a whole other thing. I don't love anything about this myself, like, and especially since I agree with the Midtown plan on this, like, that is not a place for retail to occur.
But it's kind of curious with the change between, because of ostensibly would have been the complaints coming from people directly impacted by that activity,
That is my understanding.
but then after the notice goes up, and then there's no follow-up from those people. Yeah, I mean, you know, like can you speculate on why you got the complaints to trigger the violation in the first place, but now that we're kind of at the moment where they may even be significantly impactful to the ability of this, you know, case, we don't have.
Sure, so if I understand your question correctly, so all of the complaints were, I presume they were filed with zoning enforcement, they're on a different floor than us. That is separate from the zoning change request. I definitely keep all records of zoning change request, or any comments related to zoning change requests. But prior to that, I do not have access to those records, and so we don't really do any sort of.
I mean, I just wonder, like,
location of that.
did people not understand the connection between complaining to trigger the violation and then their opportunity to submit feedback now that the notice for zone change has been put up? Or did they see that notice for zone change and that somehow satisfy the made before? Like maybe they thought this place isn't operating under anything in visibility, and now we see that they're going through a process and we don't have that much of a problem with it. I mean, I know that I'm asking you to speculate about something, but it is interesting to me that you would have had enough to cause the complaint or to cause the violation, but now we don't have.
Yeah, and I can't speak on their behalf, but in addition to the letters that they received that are required to post signs.
Yeah.
I haven't gone to the site since I took site photos to verify whether those signs have been posted. I will say that the one comment I received was in Spanish, and so that also might have impacted how people felt communicating with our department.
Another de-incentivation, I guess I'd call it, could be it's allowed to stay in operation through this process. So
Yeah,
what
sure,
difference does
maybe.
my voice make?
Yeah.
The signage remains the same, is that right?
Yes, so it's the development application signs, they're in white and red,
No, I mean like their current signage that they have for the shop, for the store. Is that what it said, that all that remains? Like they don't have to change that?
Yes,
Is there a representative here for the?
yes, he is here.
It's okay to address that question?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you guys have any more questions for me?
I do. We talked about the protective overlay. So it accepts all the restrictions of two-family and it adds retail. If this should no longer be a church, would it revert back to the two-family or would that allowance continue? Like, we're gonna allow retail.
I'm sorry, I briefly, so if you did not allow this particular use for the church to remain in function, is that what you're saying?
No, it's a church now.
Correct.
And then we're gonna allow retail potentially. So if it stops being a church,
It stays with the property.
it would still be able to be used as a retail location.
No, because uses shall be limited to retail accessory to a church.
Right.
So
if
if the
it's not a
church goes away, there will not be retail allowed on site. Yeah. Over to you, Jay.
Joe Kaufman, coming from 315 South Dallas for the next. Accept any questions?
So, sorry we're taking this late.
No, it's fine.
It's really more of an operational question, so it may not be correct to address it to you. You've heard some of the conversation and the issues about the current operation. Does the requester for this have any plans that you're aware of to help alleviate some of those past problems?
I believe he does. So like Casino was saying, he got a letter in the mail that he was operating technically in a legal business for zoning regulations. He contacted us, said, hey, I need to get in compliance. So we went to work on it. I think that his goal might be, he'll go back up to the aerial. That's fine. To possibly build a structure on the north piece that would actually get it out of the church or maybe send it there. I'm not sure what his plans are for the future,
for now, we're trying to be in compliance. But he has mentioned maybe having a store there sorts. I don't actually know if they'll be able to do that or not.
So I guess I gotta turn this question. It's inappropriate for me to ask you this next question. I gotta turn it over to Councilman Allen. My assumption is that if this goes through, should it go through, that continued potential neighborhood issues like blocking traffic and not containing or handling residue or trash properly, residents could make a formal complaint back to the city to get that addressed. Is that correct?
Maybe that's to follow up with Phil's point there, is there an additional like accountability that comes from the zoning to allow the retail versus keeping it? And like, right now they got a violation. But you know, like if they get the zone, is there more stuff that can come down to help them stay within the guide?
So I'm gonna see if I can answer your question. So for example, for conditional use applications, if there's like the one for the accessory apartment, if they find that there's a violation of any of these conditions, the conditional use is null and void. They can revoke that conditional use. I am not aware of anything like that for zoning changes or protective overlays. I know that it can escalate to, you know, court hearings, but that's pretty standard across any sort of zoned property. Yeah.
I will relay your all's concerns about trash and stuff to Mr. Rivera. And maybe that'll help him realize that people have some issues with it and then work on being a little bit cleaner. I'm not sure, but I will definitely relay that.
Well,
Either way, whether you all want to approve it or not, I'll still let him know that.
Rosita, can
The
they
18-wheeler
semis
that's on
be on those roads? 11, I guess.
Yeah, that pulls up and parks, it ends at the corner at Waco. But you
Sorry.
see where their driveway is?
Unless there's a sign that specifically says no semis, I don't think that they're necessarily prohibited.
Well, there's like all that industrial just a couple blocks away
Sure.
too. I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything from State Street east, I believe, all the way to Broadway is zoned industrial, like Wellington Place is also, or Wellington Street is also industrial.
I mean, I'll just say that, you know, I just keep going back to those golf cart people that came here a couple months ago. And this feels like the same structural thing where you have somebody and now they're trying to come into compliance, and the city with the golf cart thing was trying to help them find a way to do that. And I don't see, I mean, like I see the issues that are going, you know, I drop my kid off to school and I drive down Waco every day, and I come right off of 11th, and I've been seeing the activity happen there, and it seems like something trying to get started. And the opportunity that I see here, and not to be a super softy about this, I don't know why I'm being this way this late.
Can I record this?
Yeah, you maybe, but it just seems like there's something trying to get started. And we have an opportunity to maybe like help bring it into something, you know, that'll make everybody happier with, you know, rather than just saying, well, see you later. So I mean, I see maybe I see too much potential in it. I see too much, at least similarities. We let these people drive golf carts all over the place. It all seems a lot the same. Yeah.
Motion to approve the zone change request.
I have a question.
Sure.
Maybe you guys answer this. What are the hours for this?
The retail,
I actually have no idea what the hours are.
through the retail space.
He hasn't divulged to me what I should have gotten that answer before. I don't have that answer.
Good question.
That's a great question. I wish I'd have a better answer for you. I know that, from what he told me, I don't wanna say that he does 9 to 5, because y'all may have seen something later than that. But that's what I was under the impression, that it was just like a little store he has as a side business that's not a 5 type business, but I don't wanna say that, and then you all have seen him working past that, cause I don't wanna,
24 hour.
I don't wanna be made a liar out.
With the compo church thing, I mean, and I think that's a really good question, and maybe this also ties into it. How are you evaluating how much church is enough church? Do you know what I mean? Like if you have a bar that wants, to be a bar, but they gotta sell like 20% food. Do they gotta have church at a particular ratio of hours versus the retail, or is it just enough to have a service every now and then?
I'm not aware of a certain percentage for like times of worship. I know that, for example, with like nightclubs in the city, entertainment establishments in the city, they have to prove via their sales that their alcohol is more than 50% than and then compared to food or other types of sales. I'm not aware of any worship license of akin to that.
I mean, one thing that I can see is as a strategy, and maybe something to hesitate or not, or to go full forward on this is, I've actually, in part of my day job, I work with very small churches across the state. And a lot of them would almost certainly entertain something like this to keep the church going. Because the tithes are not gonna flip this church. It's a small church. Is that what they're doing? Well, I don't think the church.
I think this is more of a hobby he had.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what
he owns the building, so so I think this is more of a space for him to do it. Now, I don't think this is a church thing. He's the minister as well, so I mean, I imagine he's probably maybe supplementing. I don't know that.
I don't want to speak about him, but
I don't want to speak that at all, but I will say that it seems as though this is just a place for him to be able to have what it
The
seems like.
tricky part of this whole thing, I'm sure he's thought about, and that any church should think about, is the impact of the 501c3 status. That's what you gotta be careful about.
Yeah.
But that doesn't have anything to do
But
with.
that's not us, but even still, like, I mean, it is kind of interesting, like,
Yeah.
you may see other churches, maybe they would look at this and say, hey, that's an idea we could do to keep things going a little.
Several of them run, a lot of them through churches.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I like the hours question.
yeah.
Well, they sent me to
And how many
come back
cards are
next
they gonna
month
give
if they feel more comfortable with that.
Yeah,
So you guys wanna delay it until next one to have more answers?
what would be the reason to delay?
They said the times or the applicant or the, yeah.
This one or the other one?
I'm sorry.
This one or the other one? I thought the other was one they said.
Oh, was it this one?
Yes,
I'm
it was
sorry.
the next one because the applicant had a family emergency.
Just kidding. Play it.
I think it would also be open to you. Just to get this moving, to get him in compliance, if you're willing. And you wanna say an hour, or at least an end by hour during the day. Probably something else we could add to the protective overlay, that the actual commercial side of it could only operate from 9 to 5, 9 to 6, something like that. Because I understand the concerns of it being open till 9, would be an issue.
Was that work with planning?
As far as I'm concerned, I haven't seen, I don't know of any precedent for there being hours of operation for a protective overlay. You're welcome to add that as an additional provision of the protective overlay, and then I'll discuss it with my supervisor tomorrow as to the legality or the feasibility of it. But that is something that you guys can entertain all the time.
Has this gone to planning commission?
It went to planning commission and it was approved as a consent item.
I'm concerned because I think that there's probably more objection to this than has been presented. I So I'm not gonna, I can't support it because I'm fairly certain there's a larger number of people who live near and operate in that area who are not gonna be in favor of this.
Would you want to make a motion to reject it? Or at least to put it on hold? Whichever.
I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to move to reject it.
I would second it.
Could you provide adverse golden rules since the planning staff's recommending it based off the golden rules? I'm not sure the assumption of opposing is gonna meet that requirement.
Doesn't meet the Midtown plan. I believe that there is reason to investigate the opposition of neighborhood residents further than we have. I realize that that's tenuous because our rules require that it's only property owners who are notified and not the people who actually live in properties, which seems to be like
There was a zoning sign on site for 14 days, is that the requirement, 13, 14 days?
13 days.
So everybody that drove by saw that, just.
well, perhaps they did. They had the opportunity to see this, but they saw it. So
I would second it.
All in favor of rejecting?
Aye.
I was gonna say all opposed, but,
Yes.
the yeses, I guess. Who does not want to reject it?
I can't based on golden rules. I don't like it, but I can't.
So 4-3. Right?
Who seconded that motion? Okay, thanks.
You say 4-3 in favor, no?
I think it'd be worthwhile passing on the rationale, the discussion, and the concerns.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For sure, those will come back to you guys now,
This goes to city council now.
Yeah, go to the council.
since there was that difference. Yeah, so there's opportunity to address some of that.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, just a couple updates, Jonas. If anybody's interested in that, we have a lot of stuff coming up. No More Open Streets is May 4th, I can remember that. And then our next meeting is on May 12th. Do you have any more?
I do, I will send out an email to our board members tomorrow. There is gonna be an all district advisory board training on Saturday, May 31st from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. This is going to be at City Hall, I believe. We will serve you guys lunch, but I will send you an invite tomorrow so you guys can put it on your calendar.
Where's it gonna be?
I believe it's going to be at City Hall. Yes, at City Hall.
Oh, okay.
At 455 North Main. I will send you guys more information via email tomorrow.
Anybody else have any updates?
I would say also in the morning before you go to No More Open Streets, come on the Prairie Fire.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be going on, and if you need to do a little bit of work before then to get ready, come to Park Run every Saturday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning at Exploration Place. It's a free timed 5K. It's super fun. With Park Run, starting this next one, we're doing Park Run Weekly Y to do yoga at Exploration Place after Park Run until the middle of the summer, and then it'll be before. But then switch it back.
Do you have a flyer for that? Is there a flyer?
I
Do you
will
know?
find, I will
I would
take
love to
flyers.
share that.
that.
Cool, excellent. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I recommend that we adjourn.
Or a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yeah.
Woo-hoo! Thank you guys so much.
When is the